Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bxb'S Bits and Bobs, episode 38, our second annual Game of the Year extravaganza. And I mean that in every way possible. Richard is going to be doing a cabaret act for like the halftime show. I hope he's got his magic tricks ready. I did tell you about that, Richard, didn't I?
It involves balls.
Doesn't it always? And with that in mind, Joel has some bumming on his t-shirt just to get us into the mood. There it is. Speak, Joel, so we get you on the big screen.
It's apparently fish fry from Splatoon 2, so I bought this from the Nintendo store, but Richard and Ben have taken one glance at it and instantly imagined a little bit of bumming going on. So
more than a little bit. I don't even know what you keep saying. What is? I haven't played enough Splatoon 2 to even know what fish fry is.
I think it's one of the teams within the game.
Oh,
I think there are various different teams and squads, and I think the fish fry group are one of them.
Cool. Okay.
Fish frying is also what George Michael used to do in toilets.
Oh, it's all come full circle now. Then
the circle of George Michael and bumming.
So I'm going to proudly display this on the screen for just to distract Ben and Richard and our listeners.
So you get all your picks, basically. I see what you're doing. So yeah, this is a Game of the Year podcast. So that means we've got a bunch of categories which we'll go through one by one. We're going to do 2 episodes today. We're going to do Game of the Year properly at the end of the second episode. But we've got lots of categories which I'll highlight before we get into that. We're going to have a few little ad hoc categories we're going to quickly run through before we get into that properly. But first, I'll introduce Richard, the reviews editor.
Hello.
I'll introduce Joel, Home Counties editor.
Hello.
And I am your illustrious leader, Ben, back once again on the mic, on the wheels of steel. Yeah, we're gonna talk. Let's catch up. We haven't done a podcast in about a month.
Yeah, let's do that joke. It's been a year.
It has. Yes, this is the first podcast of 2018. Can't say I'm that sad to see the back of 2017. For more of the geopolitical stuff than personal reasons. Yeah, how you guys all doing? How was your Christmas? How was your New Year's? Did you have a good time?
Yeah, quiet time for me. Didn't do a lot. Already had my Xbox One X, which is my main Christmas present. So kind of went by without any drama or anything. It was fine. Nice. Not just nice to have a break from work, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, that was my main thing for me. I got a few days off from work. Ate some nice food, drank some nice whiskey.
Yeah,
man, that was my goal. What about you, Joel? With the newborn, how was your first Christmas there?
It was nice. It was nice to have some time off, and nice to have some, spend it with the new bigger family. So the 4 of us just went to my mum's for Christmas Day. She always cooks a really good meal. She cooked the most awesome turkey this year. She's got she bought this like meat thermometer that you put in the meat when you're cooking it, and it's wireless. So then you have an app on your iPad. She cooked the turkey, and like literally 2.5 hours after putting the turkey in the oven, the app's like, "Nope, your turkey's ready. Take it out." And my mum's like, "Well, normally I'd burn this bird up for about 4 hours, but no, it was perfect. It was most of the time I hate turkey because it's so dry and tough and horrible. But this was like the nicest turkey I've ever had. So
that's so cool. Yeah. Your mum's into like kitchen tech.
Oh no. My mum's into tech purely because she has me and my brother who can do all her tech support for her. So yeah.
That's really cool though.
She wants to be into tech, but she doesn't want to work out how to set things up and how they actually work. She just expects me and my brother to do it for her.
Fucking app telling you how to cook your turkey. It's the future we live in, guys.
No, it's not crazy. It's the present now.
It is 2018. We are now living in the future. Do you guys, I don't know, get up to much, like see any cool films, catch up on any Netflix, play any, like, I don't know, random old shit you want to throw out there, retro stuff? I don't know.
I've watched the new series of Black Mirror. Has anybody watched the latest series of that?
That was literally the next thing I was going to say. Yes.
Yeah.
I want to watch the Star Trek episode, but I haven't really seen any Black Mirror. So
you don't need to see all of them.
No.
Although there is one episode in the new series that kind of pulls them all into the same universe, which was interesting.
That's cool. That's kind of connected all. Is that cool though? I'm kind of not a fan of that, like the forced sort of connected tissue element now to all fucking fiction. Everything has to be connected in the same. Yeah, the Black Mirror universe competing with the MCU and the DC extended universe. It's just like I don't think we need that anymore. I just like stories to be stories almost.
They always tied it together before because I think it's the second episode of the first series. There's the girl who kind of like the X Factor style episode, and she sings the song. And then they've always subsequently used that song as like background radio, or when they're in the cars listening to music and things. And they've continued that trend throughout the series, really. So it's always like a real subtle like reminder of other episodes.
Okay. So yeah, sort of connected to that, I thought we'd do a few little ad hoc categories. No planning ahead on this, just a case of what comes to mind. So for 2017, what movies stood out for you guys? What films really like stuck with you as the year progressed?
Oh, that's easy.
Blade Runner 2049. Easy.
Yeah, I was going to say there's two films. It's either Blade Runner or Dunkirk, really, were the standout films.
See, I definitely picked Dunkirk over Blade Runner. Blade Runner I found a bit slow and dull. Beautiful, but slow and dull. But Dunkirk, mate, since watching that in 4K on my TV, I've been thinking about it constantly. Like, that is one of the best movies I've possibly ever seen. Like, I absolutely loved Dunkirk. And I don't like Christopher Nolan, but holy shit, that was an incredible film. Absolutely amazing. Anything else, Rich?
I can't think much of what else came out. Spider-Man came out. That was okay.
Spider-Man was the best of the Marvel stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Definitely the most standout of the Marvel stuff. I really enjoyed Spidey compared to Thor and Guardians. What about Star Wars? I really enjoyed Last Jedi.
I really enjoyed it, and then I got to thinking about it, and I can't really say too much because it's spoilery. But yeah, the ending has kind of turned me off.
Don't think about it too much. It's fucking Star Wars. That's the problem I have with all these people dissecting it. It's a kids movie. It looks awesome. It was cool. It had loads of cool nostalgic bits and pieces for us old school fans. What's not to love?
No, I did love it, and it was touching in like a real way. Actually, seeing Leia and Luke on screen for the last time. It was,
yes. Oh
the
God,
moment.
tears. Yeah, man. It's very, very sad. Yes. Joel, anything you wanted to add? Any other last bits?
The more I've thought about Star Wars post seeing it, the more I hate it. So,
well, the more I hate you, Joel.
I'll say that.
The more I hate you. That's fine. We won't talk about that. It's a good idea because you'll find yourself without a website to do content on. TV. TV.
You're going to suddenly get disconnected from here.
Joel's having technical issues. Damn it. TV guys, anything like, and I think I saw some like stuff in review, this year, and it's like talking about TV and things like this, and like half, 2/3 of the things they come up with are Netflix shows, and it's just like that's not even TV, but
it is.
We call it that
pretty much all I watch.
What is that? That isn't TV though, is it? It's really not. I mean, so you're talking about Stranger Things, you're talking about the new Star Trek, things like that. What really stood out? We can almost just call this the Netflix bit because frankly, I can only think of maybe one that wasn't. That was Game of Thrones, which I really enjoyed this year. But like,
big wait till 2019 for the next one now, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think my favorite discovery this year was a Netflix show, and it was Big Mouth. And I wanted to give a shout out to Big Mouth because not many people are talking about it. And I just thought it was an incredibly well observed, incredibly funny animated TV show on Netflix. Really, 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 really good. Have you guys checked out any Big Mouth?
I haven't even seen that exists.
Super funny, guys. It's all about these kids who are like 10, 12, that sort of age, going through puberty. And you can tell that it's all incredibly autobiographical for the writers. And just about best hilarious real life experiences of this group of young people going through that change in their life. And it is the funniest, most true thing you'll see on Netflix. You guys love it. Like seriously, very, very good. Very, very adult, very rude, but really, really funny. What about you? Anything you guys have discovered that was maybe a little bit under the radar?
I don't know about discovering stuff. One thing that was really turned me off this year, actually, for years, people have been going on about Walking Dead and how it's crap now. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I watched it this year and I was like, oh, that's what you're talking about. Completely dropped the ball.
Biggest pile of shit this year.
I don't care about anybody in it. I hope they all die.
I haven't cared since season 4, but
I don't know.
Fair enough.
I'm trying to think.
Drawing a blank. You've probably watched loads of cool shit and you've completely forgotten.
I think most of what I've watched has been like the latest series of Narcos. I really enjoyed that. That's Netflix again. Watched the Stranger Things, the second series of that. I really enjoyed
awesome.
that.
Yeah, it was very good.
The new series of Black Mirror, which was launched on the 28th of December, so could possibly just creep in. Although I did watch.
Yeah, no, counts.
I really enjoyed Black Mirror again. I still don't, maybe not as strong as some of the episodes that have been done before, and he revisits a few ideas. But yeah, I still enjoyed it very much. Still, even though I think it was not the best Black Mirror, I still think it's a pretty much better than most of the other stuff I've watched this year. Yeah. And now I'm drawing a blank as to what else I've watched. What I need to do is go back through my Netflix list and see what I've
Well, I didn't give you guys really any heads up about this, so I was just like, I wanted to see if there was anything that's stuck on the top of your brains, because the next one's going to be even harder, and that's music. And I've noticed as you get older, unless you're really into a genre that you write about, or you're just an incredible fan and music's your main medium, as you get older, you just sort of hear stuff, you go, that's really good, but then you don't like go out of your way anymore and get an album because of how we consume music on like streaming services. So when I say what was your favorite music of the year, that might be a tricky one. I've got one album, but I'm curious about what Richard, if you got anything, because I know you're quite into your music.
Oh, well, I'm not anymore.
No, same for me.
I can't remember the last album I bought. If I was going to buy something, it'd probably be Beck's new album. I think Morrissey's got an album as well. But since Xbox Music died this year, I've not bought any music. And I don't use streaming services, so
Joel, are you cheating and looking at your like playlist on Spotify?
I'm just looking at my which albums I've purchased this year.
Well, it doesn't have to be purchased. I mean, like I stream everything on iTunes Music, so I can't remember the last time I bought an album. But I can remember the last album I listened to that stood out to me as excellent, and it's going to be the last studio album supposedly ever by a band called Brand New. Who I've been following since the very, very beginnings of their day. So it's the kind of band that I've been listening to since I was about 16, 17, something like that. And their music has changed and evolved and got to this beautiful point where it's incredibly like personal and quite melancholy. The album's called Science Fiction. It's fantastic. And if you're into your indie alt rock at all, that sort of stuff, fantastic. Just really, really good.
I have thought of something actually, and it's not music, but it is what I listen to at work. Last year I spent a lot more time listening to podcasts and other podcasts.
You've just become a massive fan of re-listening to old Bxb'S Games podcasts.
I found an excellent podcast. I've told you about this in the past, Ben. It's it's called Cane and Rinse, and it's from a set of guys who just love video games, and it's basically a video game book club. They have a list of games that they're going to play. They all play the game, and then they sit for 2 hours and just talk about that game. And that, you can imagine they're not playing the most recent titles. They're sort of a couple of years behind. So recently they did Soma, for example, and I really enjoyed listening to people just talk about games. And they also go right back in time as well to sort of PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, N64 games. So they cover a broad range. It's really good. They also have a sister podcast called Sound of Play, which is just a video game music podcast where they get special guests on and game composers and things and sort of play tracks.
So for Cane and Rinse, are two of the hosts called Cane and Rinse?
No. That's I think it's reference to.
I understand what it's. I was just hoping it was both, because that would have been just like the most perfect.
It's Kane from WWE. Once he finished up and wrapped up his wrestling career, he went on to join a video games book club.
And Mike Rince, the Shower King. You've heard of him? No, you've not heard of Mike Rince, the Shower King? Oh, okay, he's also into his video games, it turns out. Okay, no, I'll take that. That's close enough, Joel. I did put you on the spot. I'll allow it. You with your bloody putting Stardew Valley on your top 10 list, even though it came out in 2016. I'll allow it on your personal list, but. Just, I was feeling generous then, but anyway, we'll talk about our top 10 list shortly anyway. So tech is an easiest one for me this year. It's three things. It's the advent of affordable, awesome 4K TVs. It's the Xbox One X. And then most importantly, it's the Nintendo Switch, which I feel might come up quite a lot in our deliberations today. So have you guys got anything you wanted to add to the tech shout out for 2017?
Nothing to add to the list, no. I mean, it's just worth noting that this time last year, we were wondering if Switch was just going to bomb.
Yeah.
Look how that turned out.
Biggest success in US video game hardware history, outselling even the Wii in its speed of proliferation. So yeah, that's hugely awesome. And Joel, anything you wanted to add? Because you're quite a tech guy.
Well, the only thing I think I'll add is, and keeping in theme with me being sort of lagging several years behind, I just want to put a shout out for the PSVR. I only got my one this year, and actually I've been really taken back by it. It's really good. Really impressed by that, and I've had some exciting new and great original experiences with it. So it's I can see the potential of VR. It excites me for VR's future.
If we have the energy and all the time at the start of episode 2, we'll do a little look ahead to 2018. I'll give you guys a little bit of heads up if you want to do a little look when we're on break today for lunch. To be honest, right now, there's not a lot of games announced for this year. It's weirdly, if you remember this time last year, January, February, and March was full of big, huge releases. You know, the Switch with Zelda. We had Horizon on the horizon, as it were. We had lots of games like that. We had it was a hugely busy time. I remember that. It's not like that this year. It's much quieter. So right now, there's a lot of stuff that will probably be out this year, but doesn't have fixed release dates. But if you guys wanted to have a look into that, we'll do that at the top of episode 2. Final thing I want to do, though, before we get into our proper categories, is there anything you guys want to shout out that this year you looked at and you went, oh my God, I know that's amazing. I've just not had the time to play it. And I know if I played it, it probably would have been on my list. And I've got a couple, Uncharted Lost Legacy and Yakuza 0. If I'd had time to play them, I suspect I would have loved them. But I just didn't. I tried to fit them in for this Game of the Year stuff, but couldn't do it. Too many other games I was playing. What about you guys?
Nier Automata for me. I've been looking daily to see if that's gone back into the sale because it's up to 50 quid again. And I really want to play it, but I don't want to spend 50 quid.
You should, Rich. I'd love to have a discussion with you about it. But that's one that didn't make my top 10 list. And I've actually, because I know I was the only person that was an advocate for it, I've cut it from the other lists because I don't think without some real debate with somebody else that we'd really get into the heart of it. And I think neither of you would get where I was coming from without having played it. So I've actually cut that from pretty much, I think, everything else.
Having heard other people talk about it, people that love it are like, yeah, you've got to finish it 4 times, 5 times, and then you'll really get it.
That sounds worse than it is. It's actually quite a quick playthrough. It's not like the longest game. So that does, when you hear that, you go, think of each game playthrough is more like a chapter, like rather than completion of game. It's a little bit weird the way everything about that game is kind of a little bit weird, but in a glorious way. What about yourself, Sean? Oh no, before you go, Richard, anything else that you would want to mention?
Wolfenstein II is another that
you haven't played it.
Well, I've played it, but just not anywhere near enough to really comment on how much I like it. I've done a couple hours maybe, which is disappointing. I'm disappointed in myself for not having played it more because I bought it at release. Was proper hyped for it. And that is a shame. Nazis, it's 2017. I missed the boat.
It's quite high up on my list, and it's in a lot of the categories. So I hope you at least know enough about it to agree with me. Joel,
I mean, I'm going to echo kind of where Richard went, Nier Automata. I hear a lot of people talking about it. I read a lot about it in the press. It made a lot of other media outlets. It was discussed in their top 10. So I really feel like I've missed out on something there. But all I know is that it's a long experience, and it comes along with the tagline. You need to kind of put 30 hours into it, really.
Yeah, that's not long, is it? When you're talking about a year with the Horizon and Zelda, 30 hours isn't really a long game.
No. But the problem is, in a year with Zelda and Horizon, you've got all these other 30-hour experiences plus. Fitting it in's the issue. Neo as well, another PlayStation title I wanted to check out that seems a bit Marmite with people, but
I heard Dark Souls like and was just like, nope, I'm good.
No, I played the demo of that quite a lot, and if there was more time in the year, that would have been bought. It was a good game.
Okay, well that's that bit. I want to let's run down for the listeners at home. Please head over to bxbgames.co.uk and check out all of our top 10 lists. The guys did 2 great top 10 lists, and I did a video list as well. But we're just going to sort of recap our lists in 10 to 1, so people understand kind of like where we're coming at this from, and then we will get into the first category of the day, which is biggest surprise of the year. So who wants to go first? Joel, you go first. Tell us your top 10 list. Don't know what that was.
Okay.
Surprise.
Biggest surprise? Where do you want to start, from the bottom, or just which game I actually thought was the biggest surprise?
Tell us your top 10 list in reverse order.
Oh,
that's what I'm doing first. I want to know your top 10 list. I'll do it if you can't get there. If you're not ready, if I've caught you off guard, I'll do it for you.
So, are you talking about my top 10 list of games you want me to talk about? Sorry.
Yeah, you've just put up on the website. Yeah.
Okay. So,
just quickly. Yeah. Make people read it though. Don't go into detail.
I will quickly get it up.
Not now.
Not the first time you said that this week, is it? Hey. Classic.
Sorry, click through past my pixelated face from I think some image that Ben lynched from Facebook without my permission.
Yep.
So number 10, I put Mr. Shifty. That was I think all of you guys have played it. That's a really I just put it in the Switch, played it, and from like the first level I was like engrossed, and I pretty much played through the entire game in 1 or 2 sittings. It was a great experience. Really enjoyed that.
Joel, just read the list, Joel.
All right. Stardew Valley at number 9. Released in 2016, but reviewed by me in 2017. About
I don't know. I like how I let you have that. I'm just too nice.
And Subterrane, that was a great one. I've got What Remains of Edith Finch at number 7. Number 6, I've got Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle on the Switch. Number 5, I've got Horizon Zero Dawn on the PS4. Number 4, I've got Prey. Number 3, I've got PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Number 2, I've got Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and my number 1 spot went to Super Mario Odyssey on the Switch. So
cool.
List.
See, now, I'm doing this so just so people understand like our personal perspective on the year, and then we'll get into the categories. Richard, go for it.
Prey, number 10, which was a late addition to the list, and just made it. Battlefront 2, number 9, just because I'm
controversial.
Cuphead at 8, number 7, Uncharted Lost Legacy. Splatoon 2 at number 6, the first Switch game on the list. What Remains of Edith Finch was next up at 5. Rime at number 4. Hellblade at number 3.
Oh boy.
Mario Odyssey at 2, and Zelda Breath of the Wild number 1.
We do have some diverse lists this year, guys. It's really interesting. We've got a lot of the same games, but in very different orders. Okay, for me, right. Number 10, Super Mario Odyssey on the Nintendo Switch. Number 9, Persona 5 on the PS4. Number 8, Horizon Zero Dawn, also PS4. Number 7 was Pyre, also PS4. Probably the most PS4 games I've ever had on a top 10 list. Number 6, Assassin's Creed Origins on Xbox, but obviously multi-platform. Number 5, Aero, which I adored. Absolutely loved that game. Number 4, Zelda Breath of the Wild on the Switch. Number 3, Wolfenstein II, the new Colossus. Number 2, What Remains of Edith Finch. And number 1, with a bullet, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. So we're gonna have some interesting arguments, I think, are approaching rapidly here. So let's then get into it without any further ado. Let's talk about biggest surprise. And I think, Joel, what we were just talking about, me and Richard's a little bit concerned about how many games we have on this list, and we do have a lot of games. So I think the best way we do this right now, we do a round where we all suggest one thing that we think should get cut immediately from this list. Now, guys, before we do that, how do you want to do this? We could do a top 3, or we could just pick a number 1 game for each category until we get to the game of the year. Last year, I think we just did a number 1 game, but there are obviously more games this year. So what are your thoughts?
I don't mind. We could go for the bronze, silver, gold BXB medals awards if you wish.
Yeah, we could do that. Richard?
Sounds good to me.
So we're going to do an ordered top 3. So first, let's do a round. In biggest surprise, we've currently got on the list, and I'll just read the list out so everybody knows what we're talking about. And obviously, you guys can suggest things if you think of new ones as we're doing this. So we've got Pyre, Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle, SteamWorld Dig 2, Hand of Fate 2, Torment Tides of Numenera, Nier Automata. So Nier is still on this list. I thought I'd taken it off everywhere, but it's still on Big Surprise. That's okay. Butcher, The Surge, Thumper, PUBG or PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, What Remains of Edith Finch, and Mr. Shifty. So I'll go Richard first. What do you want to cut, mate?
If I was going to cut anything from that list, it would probably be Hand of Fate 2. I'm not sure that was a surprise, was it?
I was surprised. I was surprised that there was a Hand of Fate 2, and I was also surprised at how much better and the directions they took it in. It's difficult. We're going to have games where only one of us is an advocate for it, which makes it hard to obviously get the consensus. But I'd be okay with that. I think there are a lot of great games on this list, and I kind of I put some on there almost because I want to give them a shout out, because I thought Hand of Fate 2 was, and is an incredibly fun experience. But I don't necessarily think it's going to come in the top 3 of this category. So I'm happy to lose that.
Yeah, the category biggest surprise is kind of a nebulous thing, isn't it? I mean,
well,
in what respect? But
in any respect, you want to
surprise to me means it made some big impact and we didn't expect it to. And I'm not sure that Hand of Fate 2, however good it was, didn't really ripple the waves for me.
If you hear me clicking, it's because I'm altering the list, doing it live. Joel.
I'm going to pick off the list. I think I'm going to pick The Surge, mostly because I've not played it. No, I'm pretty adamant this stays on this list. Who I was so surprised by this, because I didn't think, first of all, there was going to be a Dark Souls-like game that I could enjoy that much, and I absolutely loved it. I love the setting. They actually pulled off a sci-fi Dark Souls. I really was surprised at how well the dismemberment mechanic works, the kind of risk and reward of that. I really enjoy the limb targeting. I really like the setting. I think The Surge should stay on here for now.
I agree. I'll back you on that. I thought if someone was going to make a Dark Souls-esque Dead Space, and that's kind of my 2 dream ticket games in one.
And it's also the DLC is really good as well, by the way.
I haven't played the DLC, but
good.
I was surprised by The Surge. I expected it to be some just knockoff thing, but it has its own identity. It works really well. Solid game.
I could see Surge being. I'm looking at this list and I can sort of see what I think might be number 1, but I think it definitely deserves to be in the top 3 at this point.
Yeah,
big time. Sorry, Joel. I'm gonna cut.
I'm not offended.
I'm gonna cut Nier, just because I think it definitely was a massive surprise, but you guys haven't played it. Nobody thought there'd be a game in the Nier sort of universe, because it's existed for a while, and they were these obscure Japanese role-playing games that nobody really played in the West, but then putting Platinum on it and coming up with this incredible human story that it's really difficult to talk about without spoiling it. But no, it's a fabulous experience, but I know I'm on my own here, so I will cut Nier. And I feel like this will be, when we do the game of the year next year, we'll have to do maybe like look back at this year, like the Yakuzas and the Niers and stuff, and pick a best game of the previous year, because I reckon once you guys have played Nier, you're gonna really wish you'd played it before these discussions. But like, here we go. I'll cut Nier. I don't think you're gonna stop me on that one, are you?
No.
Anything? All right, we'll change the format up a bit. We did a round of cuts. Richard, now you can cut or you can advocate. I do not mind.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it'd probably work better if we just choose what we think should stay in, because listeners can't see the list.
They can see the list because it's on the show notes, so they can absolutely see the list. Yes.
No, but unless they're carrying around like.
And it's on the YouTube.
A printout on the bus when they're listening on the bus.
Well, it's not my problem how you're doing it. Fucking get involved, people. Get involved. It's fine. If we want advocate, I mean, it's fine. I mean, the lists are up in various places, but yeah, go for it. However you want.
Okay. If I was going to list my top 3 of what I think were biggest surprises of the year, not in any particular order, The Surge, I think, would be up there. I would have to give a shout out to Mario and Rabbids. I haven't played the game, but just from sort of a corporate angle, who would have expected that game to exist and actually, be well received as well? I think there's a lot of love for that game this year, so nice to see Nintendo letting go a little bit of their franchises where it makes sense to do so. That's a win-win for Ubisoft and Nintendo, that game. So more of that, please. And I suppose the other would be PUBG. It's got to be PUBG, isn't it? Coming from where it did, from absolutely nowhere to the biggest game of the year. It has to be in the top 3, if not at the top.
I think that's well, I agree with 2 of your picks there. I don't. Well, maybe Joel.
So I'm going to largely follow Richard. Mario plus Rabbids again, re-echoing the fact that whoever saw Ubisoft doing a Mario title. So that was a surprise reveal at E3. Subsequently, also released it very quickly post E3, and it was a brilliant a Mario XCOM game. What can you say? So stunned on all fronts, pretty much. Battlegrounds again, yeah. It seems such a simple formula and a simple idea. You can't believe that no one's ever done it before. But yeah, here we are. Someone's done it. It's dominating the Steam charts. It's dominating on the Xbox as well for multiplayer. You know, copies sold and sort of simultaneous players. So yeah, that's fantastic. Now picking a third one off this list is a bit tough. There are only 2 other games on the list I've actually played. So I think I will go with What Remains of Edith Finch, purely just because of not that it has a very nice narrative and stuff, but it's the way they use the medium of video games to present it really took me back. And we will talk in more detail about it later on, but there are some really touching moments in that game.
I think it's fair to say when we start talking things like narrative and story, there's going to be spoilers. You know, that's just the nature of the beast. So if you haven't played any of the games on the list, sadly, I think try and, I don't know, skip that bit or close your ears. I don't know how it works, but yeah, I think you guys have come up with some good picks there. I would 100% think PlayerUnknown is number 1. I think What Remains of Edith Finch should be up there very highly as well, because well, I mean, I know the developer's got pedigree, but the game kind of just appeared out of nowhere. I almost missed it. I only played on it because Joel, was it Joel or Rich? Which one of you was advocating it? I can't even remember now.
But you, I played it back when it launched back in March, I think.
And you made Ree and Richard both play it. And it was, for me, one of the most emotionally impactful video game experiences I've had this year, as was actually PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, but in a completely different way. So I think those 2 definitely. The third one, I want to give a shout out to Pyre, because Pyre, again, the reason I don't think Pyre really gets into the top 3, but I want to talk about it, is it doesn't get into the top 3 because it comes from Supergiant, and Supergiant haven't made a bad game yet. They've Bastion and Transistor are both fantastically experimental, beautiful looking, amazing sounding games. And yeah, Pyre is definitely, you know, in the same Uber. I think Pyre has a much better chance of winning, say, Best Style, which will be coming up shortly, than it would Biggest Surprise. So I'm happy to let that one, you know, float off. I don't kind of agree with Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle, though, because I think while it is a surprise that it exists, I didn't like it that much. I think I preferred, like, you know, if I want to play that game, I'd rather play XCOM. I think it's funny enough, but I kind of wish the Rabbids had nothing to do with it. I understand that's the only reason it really got made, because it was a Ubisoft property and they wanted to get their mascot in there with Mario, which can only help the popularity of their mascot. However, I know, you know, I'm not judging this on best game. It is Biggest Surprise, and it was a surprise when it was announced, and then it wasn't a surprise. There was rumors of it coming out, but then when we saw it at E3, and it was so like the way they lent into it at Ubisoft, how it's such a big deal that this is Nintendo letting Ubisoft do this, and then a game came out relatively quickly after that as well. I suppose I can't argue with it being on here. I'd kind of like the Surge in the top 3 though, more than I would Mario and Rabbids.
Yeah, I kind of feel like Surge is probably the better game, but it wasn't the bigger surprise. That's the category.
I think I'm the only person that played Butcher. Let's just tidy up this list a little bit and get rid of some of the other ones. I'm the only person that played Butcher, so I can understand why you guys don't care about that so much. Butcher is a fantastically cool 2D Doom. and it's violent and gory and with great music and a great pixel art style. I really liked Butcher, but yeah, I can see you're not gonna win that one for me. We've kind of discounted Pyre at this point, which is fine. SteamWorld Dig 2. Neither of you guys played SteamWorld Dig 2, even though you're big Switch fans. I'm surprised.
No.
Yeah, I'm disappointed with myself a bit about that, because I've got a few of my other friends just simply talk about how brilliant it is, and
it's awesome.
Never one of those like, oh, I need to get it, but I will at some point. I just don't know when.
Yeah, I picked it up off of hearing the buzz and off the strength of the first game, and I was super surprised at how well it develops the formula, and it's just such a pleasant gaming experience. You know, it's such a nice pick up and play on the go Switch game. It works really well as that. But okay, we'll cut that. I think we're getting down to the nitty gritty of this one actually already. Torment, Tides of Numenera. You guys know? No.
No.
Torment is a fabulously obtuse game. It's a surprise that it exists in 2017. It's this narrative, pretty much only CRPG in which you can avoid all combat if you play it properly. It's just text. Like, there's so much text. It's so much great writing. It's the big surprise is this super inventive, crazy sci-fi fantasy world that's dreamt up in this game, and it takes you there like a good science fiction novel would. You know, it really, really does. But okay. I am a little bit surprised though, Richard, that you haven't advocated Thumper at all.
I did buy Thumper twice this year.
I
just don't think it's the category it's in, Ben. I don't think
you don't feel like it was a surprise. Well, why wasn't it a surprise? It came from nowhere. It's not like a game. It's not like a genre that gets a lot of games. It's not. It's also a very different take on that type of genre.
I don't know. Maybe it's when I got it, because the first version I got was for PSVR, and I kind of bought everything that was out on PSVR at the time. So it was one in a list. So I guess for that reason, it did have an impact on me, but it kind of filled a small gap in a big list of games.
I just had a slight suspicion about Thumper, and I was correct. That game came out in 2016. Okay. Yeah.
Take that off.
I thought it was this year as well.
I wasn't the only one. Yeah. I'll take that.
Well, I didn't put it in my top 10, Joel. Yeah. Just saying.
I'm sure
but Joel, here is a game that is in your top 10 that you've not fought for in this category, Mr. Shifty.
Yeah, well, I'm sitting here thinking, did I really write that at the biggest surprise? Was it a surprise to me? I guess no. I only heard about it via you guys saying that it was an amazing game. You have to try it, and so I played it, and I really enjoyed it. It wasn't like there was a huge media hype leading up to it per se, that with the expectation like, oh, this game's going to be potentially rubbish, but it actually turned out to be really good or anything like that, or we're just surprised the game existed. So yeah, I don't think there's any way I can fight for it in this category.
I don't think it does anything particularly new either, does it? It's just really good at what it does.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
It's so refreshing that it just strips everything back and does its one thing amazingly well.
Okay, so we've got 4 games here, shortlisted as it were. We got Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle, The Surge, PUBG, and What Remains of Edith Finch. I think the fight here is between The Surge and Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle. I think What Remains and PUBG are locked. Though the order may change for What Remains of Edith Finch. So, we'll talk about that. But PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds is definitely the biggest surprise of the year. I mean, how could it not be? Who the hell thought this was even going to be a thing? It's a sensation. I mean, we're going to be talking about that a lot, as the discussions go on today. But that's number 1. So who wants to fight for Mario and Rabbids? Because I'm not going to fight for them, because I really want The Surge on this list. So convince me it should be Mario and Rabbids.
Oh, I can't, because I didn't play it. So it stands to you, Joel.
I'll fight for it. I like it was a genuine surprise. It was a surprise in both its announcement, the fact it existed. That was a big surprise, I think. And yeah, it's a decent game. I understand that perhaps for those people who want a more in-depth XCOM experience, that XCOM is there, but this is a more simpler, accessible XCOM. I think it's got I think it takes the sort of XCOM gameplay and makes it a bit more accessible and broadens up the scope for more people to kind of get into that. It's just brilliant. It's so charming. It's so well delivered. It's even with the Rabbids, it's hard to believe it's not a Nintendo game. When you're playing it, it simply just plays as well as the Mario Odyssey. It's as good as Zelda. It plays so smoothly. It looks so perfect. It's really good.
It's as good as Zelda. No.
In the way it plays, it performs on the platform, Ben. The way the worlds are constructed.
It runs is what you're saying. It doesn't crash. So that puts it in the same place as Zelda.
It's polished to the point of Nintendo's level of polish.
I'll take that. I'll take that.
I think you can take that. A Ubisoft game that has polish. Yeah, that is a surprise.
No, it's not. There's been a year full of Ubisoft games that have polish. So they've been doing great stuff this year.
The only real bad thing I could say about the game is that its multiplayer mode was perhaps a bit lacking. It's local kind of co-op. So local co-op sees you play on both the same side as rather than against each other, which was a bit surprising. But I believe that they have are subsequently working on it, updating that to make it so that it is PvP. But yeah, that's about the only fault I can leverage at that game. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a surprise from, like I say, its sudden announcement, its sudden release shortly after, and just how good it was.
I mean, Mario and Rabbids, everything about that's a surprise, isn't it? It's a surprise because Ubisoft is making a Mario game. It's a surprise because it uses the Rabbids in a way which makes you not want to pull your eyes out. It's a surprise because it's an XCOM type game on a Nintendo Switch. It's a surprise because it was announced and released all within the same calendar year. Whereas you compare it to The Surge, and The Surge's surprise is that it's a damn good Dark Souls-like game in a sci-fi setting with an interesting mechanics. It's not a surprise because the developer has a history making Dark Souls-like games, because they made Lords of the Fallen, and this is kind of like an evolution of that. So I guess that it's not as shocking that it exists as Mario and Rabbids.
It's more a sci-fi angle, I think. The idea that you know, there's so many Souls-like games out there, but none of them.
I don't think there's so many. It's a growing genre, but you know, and I definitely don't think there's so many because we're still at that point whenever one shows up where you go, oh, look, another Souls-like game. That doesn't happen with first-person shooters, for example, does it? You just expect to see a first-person shooter or platformer. You know,
I mean, just within the canon of From Software, really, there's 3 Dark Souls games. There's Demon Souls, you've got Bloodborne. You know, they're not rare.
I mean, aren't they? I mean, you know, how many have we had this generation in the last 4 years, you know? Not that many. I mean, they're pretty rare, I think. You know, it still kind of stands out when you get one, a good one especially.
I'm not trying to say they're common. All I'm saying is that, you know, there's enough of them now that you would think it might have branched out from that sort of fantasy dark aesthetic. And Surge is the first one to do it in a sci-fi setting.
It's a great game. It's a really, really good game by a small team, and I really liked it. But I'm happy. I think, Joel, you helped convince me there, mate. I think we cut the Surge from this top 3. Are you guys happy with the order of PUBG, What Remains, and then Mario and Rabbids?
Yeah. Let's go with that.
Oh, Joel, if you're not, say.
It's kind of like what you definition of a surprise is. So I think Mario plus Rabbids for me might have been the number 1 purely just because of its surprise.
More surprising than PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds kind of it was a surprise that kind of just steadily grew kind of organically over a long
everything about it is a surprise.
Big surprise.
No, I think PlayerUnknown's surprise appearance in early access in like February. This is a game made not even by a developer, really. This is a game led up by a modder for all intents and purposes, right? This is a game that shot up the Steam charts, you know, and we got an Xbox version, and we've got how many concurrent players on Steam? 3 million. 3 million units already sold on Xbox. 20 million units sold on PC. This is easily and it's a sensation. It's blown up in ways no other game has blown up this year. That is a huge surprise.
I think it's got over 30 million concurrent players on Steam. Actually.
Not concurrent, no. Well, at the same time playing, no.
Yes.
There was 30 million.
There was some joke about it nearly having more continuous players than the population of Canada.
Playing at the same time, 30 million.
I'll see if I can find the charts.
If that's true.
In real time, let's have a look.
Look. If that's true, I am genuinely surprised right now at that information. So it has to be number one.
So 3 million. But yeah, I think it has to be the front runner by some way. And if there's any argument in this category, it's whether Edith Finch
2 and 3. Isn't it?
Sorry, yeah, you're right. I'm way off. It's 3.2 million.
I thought it was 3. Yeah, that's what I said. I would listen to an argument for switching Mario and What Remains, but I can't conceive Mario at number one.
No. PUBG is easily number one.
Well,
I disagree, but it's a democracy documentary.
It's not so much a democracy. Well, it's not about votes cast. It's about arguments made. I'm happy to allow you to put Thumper first. I think Mario plus Rabbids was a bigger surprise than What Remains of Edith Finch. Edith Finch was a game that we knew about. We expected it to be a slightly better version of Gone Home, and it just turned out to be better than I thought it would be. More touching than when I played it, so it's surprising. I'd be happy to switch those around as a bit of a compromise, and I think that's fair. So, biggest surprise of 2017 is PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, followed by Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle, followed by What Remains of Edith Finch. So we move on to best story / narrative / yarn told to keep me engaged / that thing that they don't always pay much attention to in video games called story. Though it's getting better every year.
This is going to be a hard category.
Right.
For those of us who haven't played or have played but haven't finished these, it's going to be tough to measure up, isn't it?
Well, yes. Okay. So in this list so far, we have Assassin's Creed Origins, Wolfenstein II: The New Colossus, Horizon Zero Dawn, Torment, Tides of Numenera, which I suspect will be leaving just as quickly as I said that. Nier Automata, which will also be leaving. Persona 5, What Remains of Edith Finch, Prey, Hellblade, Night in the Woods, and Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. So shall I just cut Torment now? Because none of you know how good that is. And I'll cut Nier now for the same reason. Oh my god, Nier is right up there as well. It's so far up this list.
I wish I could play that and support you.
I can't even begin. Nier is so... the gameplay for me is what was lacking, which is surprising from a Platinum game. But my god, the story and the setting of that world, it goes to some crazy places, and it's so cool. I want to talk to Richard because he's been playing it a lot recently. Assassin's Creed Origins. You've actually put more time into that recently, so it might be fresher in your mind. I suspect you've got quite far based on how much I've seen you playing it.
Pretty much caught you up, I think. I'm not.
How are you finding that, mate?
It's good. Yeah, I'm much more into it than I thought I'd be. Because, anyone that's listened to this show before, I'm not an Assassin's Creed fan. I've played a bunch of them and I never get into it. But I don't know what it is about this one. Probably the world, I guess. Knocking about Egypt, climbing up pyramids and that. It's well good.
It's beautiful, isn't it? Isn't it beautiful? Oh my god.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joel. Keep us on target, Joel. So I was just in my head. I was just away into Egypt again. Then when Richard started talking, I was like, "Oh, look! It's so pretty here in Siwa." Okay.
I think it's in the wrong category here, though. I think Assassin's Creed.
The reason
I don't buy the setup of Assassin's Creed games.
I love the setup. I love the setup. I love it. The reason it's in here though isn't for the modern day setup and any of that. It's in here for Bayek and his relationship with his wife, and what happens to their son, and the differences between him and his wife, and that interplay goes in some really interesting directions. It's just really good, but I don't think it will be in the top 3. So, not even close. So I think that stuff is fine,
but it doesn't stand out to me. I mean, it's fairly rote as stories go. It's just fine.
Okay, I understand. Richard, I'm going to go to you on another one because me and Joel have recently been playing Hellblade.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this the other day. I sent Joel a message basically on the line of, what the fuck is wrong with Richard? Why does he like this pile of shit?
What is wrong with you?
And Joel went, I don't know. I have the same problem.
That's a little unfair. It went more along the lines of, when does this game get good? Because the struggles I'm having are, I found the narrative.
Okay, that's maybe more along the lines of what I said. Yeah,
but the gameplay wasn't engaging me enough to want to push on through. So,
oh my god! Yeah, tell me why I should play more of that game, because my god, I was bored of that awful combat and those puzzle mechanics, which are the worst. So yeah, go on. Come on, Rich. Gone quiet. Eaten.
And he obviously can't, so we'll just go.
I think he's frozen. He's frozen. He's gone. We've lost him. Oh Jesus! This is going well already. We've killed. I'll eject him. And see if we can get him back in a second, and then because this is the point I wanted to defend Hellblade, and he can't do it. This is going well.
Am I on? Am I back on?
Yeah. What happened? What happened? Are you all right?
Well, I don't know. It was fine for me. You guys didn't drop.
That was weird. Yes. Tell us why we should persevere through the awful combat and the bad puzzles.
It's not awful combat.
They're not
bad puzzles. But
what are you talking about?
I'm not going to talk about them now at all because we're on story and narrative.
Right.
And Hellblade has easily the best narrative of any game this year.
No,
it's not even in doubt. It's easily the best. It's top of this category by a country mile.
No.
Because it's a game that has real social, what do you call it? Conscience. It explores mental health issues and was developed in conjunction with mental health sufferers and reflects their real symptoms.
Yes, and I'll give you the audio design and how that is done in game is fantastic. Absolutely. Yeah. However, it's not an interesting story. I don't care about that character. I don't care about the setting, and I don't care about anything she's doing. I 100% agree that how they represent all that mental health stuff is fantastic, and I'd love to see more socially conscious games, but that doesn't make it engaging.
To me, it did. To me, it made that character real, and it made her sort of journey through that game. Whatever you think of the setting, you might think it was boring. I didn't, but the character is essentially a real character, far more than most video game characters.
What's her name again?
Senua. Yeah.
So
I'm gonna take the middle ground here because I think there's something great in that narrative, and I really want to continue to play it. I want to see it through to its end because I think it's going to come together in a really awesome, exciting way. I just I sat down with it for 2.5 hours, and there are some brilliant moments in that. Sort of with the combat. I say that I didn't enjoy playing the combat, but I like the way that when you're fighting, for example, that you get he's behind you when there's an enemy behind you. And there are lots of little cool things about it, but the combat I just didn't enjoy. And the puzzling in it became very dry and boring very quickly. And because of that, I couldn't push the gameplay. The narrative or want to see the end wasn't enough to compel me to continue. So
if there's an option in that game, Richard, to turn off puzzles and combat, I'd just do the story.
Do you think you need to be a bit mental to enjoy it? Because I liked the puzzles, but maybe I'm a bit OCD.
Right, I'll give you an example. I like Joel played about the same amount of time as he did, about 2.5, 3 hours. I really gave it a good shake, Rich, considering it's a pretty short game. That's best part of half the game. And I remember climbing up to when you get into an area with one of the doors, you know exactly what the puzzles will be, because they usually really sort of stand out, pointless environmental design that only exists to have a puzzle in it. For example, there's a tower I can climb. Well, I know that means I need to go up there at some point to work out where the puzzle is going to be. So I can spot that immediately, which is in my mind kind of poor design. But then I'll go and open the door, and I went up to where I've got to find the puzzle, and I was up there for about half an hour. Just trying to line up some bullshit in the scenery. And it's just like, this is not fucking fun. And then, yeah, it's a shame because I think it's a real detriment to the gameplay experience. And it is relevant to story and narrative because I would have experienced more of the story and narrative if those things weren't breaking my progress. And the combat's just like overly simple until it's overly fiddly, and then there's no real happy middle ground in that. I just didn't find it engaging. I just found it frustrating mostly. But the puzzles are the worst bit.
I think you're playing it wrong.
I'll have you know, I'm a professional game player, Richard. I'll have you know.
I can't argue the puzzle. All I can tell you is my experience that I didn't find anything that wrong at all.
Well, because I just remember going. I remember early on one of the puzzles is right. You have like a Y shape, and it's like, well, I've already spotted the dude strung up on the things. It's going to be that. So I walk over there and I'm looking at him for ages, and it's like, oh, it's not working because I have to walk backwards 3 paces and put a bloody log in the same shot, even though it's the same flipping shape. It's just like, oh, you're just making this complicated for the sake of it. I didn't get any of that.
I didn't get any of that. It seemed quite straightforward to me, and it's there for a reason. It's not just for the sake of having a puzzle, is it? The whole point of it is that, you know, with her condition, she sees things that aren't there. She finds things of relevance and significance that really she shouldn't.
I think you're stretching that. I mean, that might be how they explain it, but the puzzles feel like they're there to make the experience longer, is what it feels like to me. It doesn't feel necessary.
The game is designed around how people with mental health conditions think and the sort of things they...
Well, I think the lesson here is that it wouldn't be fun to have a mental health condition.
No, not at all. It conveys that well, but on the puzzle aspect...
Yes, it does.
On the puzzling aspect, I think the problem I have with it is, I think you're right, Richard. I think they're trying to make a point. What I think happens is it doesn't take the player that long to actually realize that they're trying to make a point, but then they just continue throwing the same puzzle after puzzle at you. I did the ones where you have to walk through the gates and the scenery, sort of bits of scenery appear or disappear, and you have to obviously walk through the gates in a sort of correct order to get around. And you know, the first couple of times you're like, yep, this is funny, I get it and stuff, and then you go through the next big door. Oh, there's more of them. Oh, there's more of them. And I think some of the puzzles overstay their welcome, and that's what becomes the problem.
So it sounds like I went down the other path, because at the beginning of the game you're given 2 paths to choose from for 2 different gods, and I went down the fire one first. And it's the same. Sadly, what you just told me is really disappointing, because it sounds to me like it's almost the same mechanic in both paths. The fire one is, oh, you activate this thing and then everything's on fire and you have to work your way out. We'll go through the fire in a certain way to get through the gate in a certain amount of time. And it sounds exactly the same mechanic in the other path, except it's just stuff is invisible or something. I don't know. So
no. It's different door. You look through a gateway and then the world through it has changed. So it's not.
But it's kind of the same thing. The fire alters the world. So when you activate the fire, it's like, right, well, the environment is now different in a way that I have to approach it in a different situation, in a different way.
How does that make it the same?
So it's just altering the environment in a different way. That's all it's doing. It's the same kind of concept, the same kind of puzzle mechanic.
Okay, well, you could say that the first level of Mario Odyssey is a bit like it then, because it's just a different sort of environment with, you know.
Look, I'm not going to cut this from the list yet, because you're clearly really passionate about it, and I respect that, because you're getting catty already. So,
right, but we're not even talking about puzzles and combat. This is best.
No, you're right. We have gone a little bit off tangent here. I agree. So let's move on to another one. Which I think you guys will probably want to cut because you've not experienced it, which is Persona 5. Don't be like that. Don't be like that. At least I played fucking Hellblade. I'm stuck in it. Put myself through that torment. Right. Persona 5. To be honest, it's on here because it is a really cool, interesting story with this weird setup. However, it's not as good as Persona 4's story and narrative. So I don't really want to spend too much time defending it right now to 2 people that have not put in any time into the game. So I think we'll just cut that now and be done with it. I'm saving my energy for bigger battles later on. Edith Finch, I feel like, is a shoo-in for top 3.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd go with that.
Yeah, I'm not saying number one, but I'm saying top three. I also feel like Wolfenstein 2 is a shoe-in for top three.
Not
From
for
what
me.
I've tried so
No,
far.
okay. Right then, I'll fight that one.
It's got some great characters, Wolfenstein 2. Definitely.
Joel, I know you had issue with the moment-to-moment gunplay, and I agree with that to a large degree. I wish it was more like the balletic kind of combat of Doom than it was this slightly odd mishmash of stealth into action, to the point where I ended up dropping the difficulty down just so I could get through it too. But I did that so I could experience more of the character stuff and more of the story stuff, which is what really drew me into that world much more than the combat, which I think it also doesn't have the most exciting arsenal of weapons, does it? I feel like they could have done a lot more with their gun design in that game. But come on, are you telling me you didn't enjoy that crazy batshit sort of story?
I didn't say I didn't enjoy it.
Or is it the characters more than the story?
No, I think I enjoyed the characters. The stories, it's just a fine story, isn't it? It's not.
Now I think about it, it's more about the characters, isn't it? It's more about the characters than it is the story. And the next category is best character.
There's a bad guy, they offend you at the start, and you then go through the game, find out a bit more about your background and stuff like that, and then kill him at the end. It's kind of okay. And
I did really like
the set pieces, but yeah, it's not. It's a fine story. It's just not great.
The story element towards the beginning of the game about BJ and his past and his father and his mother, that stuff was probably the most engaging actual story stuff of the game, wasn't it? And I kind of wish they'd made that last a bit longer than when they kill off his dad fairly, what is that, midpoint in the game roughly? Act one, maybe.
Character building, wasn't it, through some small scenes? It really set some background to BJ and his character, but they're just like small snippets in amongst a sort of overall average tale, I would say, or the highlights of an overall average tale.
Okay, no, I've cut it. I've cut it out. So, you two have both. I've played Horizon as well, but do either of you wonder? You both played more than me. Do either of you want to be an advocate for the story of Horizon Zero Dawn?
I've completed it, and I've completed the DLC, and I found the narrative very engaging myself, particularly the main storyline. So I wanted to, if I was to pick free, it's in my free. So
what? I mean, look, I know I've not played as much, but if there's any kind of big moment you want to shout out as an element of the game that really grabbed you, because for me, Horizon is more the world than the story. I mean, maybe I've not got far enough yet to have that connection with the narrative, but I'm not finding Aloy's story that compelling.
I would disagree with that. I've not got that far in it myself, but I've got far enough to know that it's clever with how it sets up characters that you think are going to be there for the long haul, and then they're just not. It really undercuts your sense of what this world is, and how safe everybody isn't. I think that has got me gripped story wise. I just think gameplay wise, it's too big a job for me to get too much further into it just yet, with so many other games to play. But yeah, the story's great so far.
It might be something to do with the way I've been playing it, like broken up with large chunks of time.
Yeah.
And then, sneaking in an hour or two and not really sitting down with it as a continuous experience for like a day or something, and really being able to get drawn into it. Joel, Joel, any examples, anything you really want to shout out?
What I really loved about the story is that you're thrown into this world that is, and you've got the remnants of the civilization as we know it today, but you have no idea what's happened, and it's about going through this as it gently, piece by piece, unveils how we went from the big successful civilization to complete collapse, to almost this tribal restart. And then you've got the mystery about all the machines in the world, what's going on with all of those. So why is there some of this technology still here? And it's the way that it all steadily, you visit each of these old locations, you enter each one of these old labs step by step, and it just gives you another bit of the story. I found it really engaging. I think it was the sort of sci-fi element of the story as well. Just really resonated with me. I really liked it.
I will say, whenever I was exploring like a cauldron or something, I was always really on the lookout for another audio log, or something to tell me about what the fuck happened here, you know, and that overarching mystery of how the world got to where the world is quite a compelling aspect. Yeah, maybe that to me is maybe the aspect I'm more interested in than Aloy's story. It's the story of the wider context. Yeah.
Well, I don't know how far you got into it.
Not far enough, I'm gonna guess.
Then wrapped together. So
yeah, I thought they might.
Your background, your mystery, because there's the mystery about yourself and the mystery of the world, and they intertwine together later in the game.
Because there's a whole thing with who your mother is, isn't it? It's like they don't know who your mother is or your father is. Something like that.
You have no idea, and no one will tell you. And it's steadily all revealed through these main story quests that you do. Yeah, it was really. I just found it very engaging. So
okay, so I've shortlisted that. Night in the Woods. Neither of you guys played that, no?
No, sorry.
No.
So this is basically this incredibly artistically charming, cute-looking game, I guess, which has got this sort of almost Wes Anderson animation style to it, which is, you know, about these, like, everybody's like these little forest animals, but it's just anthropomorphized for the sake of it, basically, because the animalistic nature has nothing to do with the story. The whole game is about a college dropout called May. She's in her early 20s. She's gone away. She's left their small town. She's gone away to the big college to, you know, be awesome and leave that shit behind. And then it's all gone tits up and she's had to come back. And it's about that awkward reconnecting with that small town and the small town mentality and her old friends from back home. So it's a very kind of personal, very real, very modern story of growing up awkwardly in the 21st century. And I think it's super cool. I didn't necessarily always connect with me as much as, say, What Remains, because this is such a specific narrative about a very specific type of person and situation. I felt like if you had some form of experience similar to Maze, you might connect with it a lot more because it is so specific. However, you know, I didn't have that, and I certainly was never a 20-something-year-old girl. So I find that a bit more difficult to connect with. But the writing is super charming, and it's all, the game is basically a point-and-click adventure game. So it's all about the story and the narrative. The whole central crux of it is that. I recommend checking it out, guys. Yeah, it's a really interesting little experience. It looks really, really, really sharp, pretty visuals that are engaging and charming. And the writing, it's all text. And it's just funny and well observed and rings true. And yeah, I mean, but you guys haven't experienced it. So I feel like I'm fighting an uphill battle a little here. Anything?
Get rid of it.
It's a goner, yeah.
Okay. Well, for that reason, Richard, I feel like you should cut Uncharted because I haven't played that.
Fair dude.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've not played it either.
It's
so.
Tell us about it. Yeah, go on. I'm assuming it's great.
Well, it's good. Yeah, you've played the other Uncharted games. Imagine them, but in just a slightly higher voice.
But two hot chicks instead.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm down. Yeah, man. Is there anything in it that sets it apart from being just another Uncharted game when it comes to story and narrative? Nothing at all.
No. Not
it just does it well.
Mechanically, it changes it up a bit, but yeah, the story is exactly what you're used to, which is great. And it feels wrong to take it for granted because there's a lot of craft that goes into that. But yeah, I can't say it stands out because it's another Uncharted game.
Okay. So that leaves one we haven't discussed yet, and I know Joel. Tell us about Prey.
How before I go too spoilery on it, have either of you completed the game?
I reviewed it.
What are we talking about now? Prey,
yeah.
No. Please don't spoil it because I've put quite a lot of time into it.
Yeah, and it's that kind of game where you really
I don't want to spoil it, and I think I can convey my feelings about the game without spoiling it. So literally, it's a bit of a slow burner, I guess, to start with on the narrative front, but it's got some nice bits. I like sort of all the emails and things, and you get to meet both ends of the email threads at different times. So there's sort of these interlinking stories. But on the main narrative front, it goes and goes and goes, and there are some really good moments in it. But Jesus, the very last bit they throw at you is just a oh my god moment. That is just, and it gives context. It almost changes what your context you built up for the whole narrative for the whole game was, and rips that apart and just puts it into something new that's just even better. It's got a really stunning final kind of 1-2 minute sequence that just puts the polish on it, and it's just definitely like a whoa moment. So really persevere with it, and I don't even think it's persevere because I really enjoyed that game. I was really upset when I finished it almost that there wasn't anything more I could do other than replay it now. But yeah, there's a really brilliant ending.
Yep, from the look in Joel's eyes and the way he just described that, and the most probably animated I've seen anybody yet today. That's in the top 3. He's right. It's an awesome immersive sim, isn't it? It works. It's like you said, it starts slow and it's quite unassuming, but once the mechanics have built up and the story gets going and you feel like you're genuinely a part of that place, it really puts you there. It puts you there better than I think like the Dishonored games, which are I think the closest sort of comparable experience. And it just
from the same
it's such a cool sci-fi setting. Yeah, it's Arcane as well, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, right. So I want to cut Hellblade, Rich.
That is mental.
No. Senua is mental. But me cutting it, that's very, very logical.
Okay, I'm outnumbered. You're going to have to cut it. But
I think only you're only outnumbered, Rich, in the sense that I haven't finished it.
Just bring it up. Don't put it on the list, Rich. Bring it up when we get to it. But I think that's a fair shout. But yeah, look, if you can get onto Ninja Theory and tell them to make their puzzles less shit, Rich, then I'll finish the fucking game.
Be better at puzzles.
But it's not that. I can do them. They're just boring. Really fucking boring. So we've got a top 3 here. We've not actually talked about one of them because it was like put straight in, which is What Remains of Edith Finch.
Do we need to talk about it?
We probably should just talk about it a little bit. This game is all about its amazing story and narrative. It's a collection of vignettes that are all completely different gameplay experiences that tell you about the life and death of a different member of the Finch family, and they are all fantastically well realized. They all did this thing where I wanted to know more about the character. They tell you enough to convey the story, but I was always like, oh god, I just want to spend a bit more time there. I just want to know a little bit more. And I know some people were left maybe cold by some of the vignettes, but I personally loved them all for their creativity and how they approach things differently. I thought it was very smart for them to start with the weirdest one almost, to like draw the player in. And then some of them are very grounded, some of them are very short. Some of them are absolutely heartbreaking. And then the ending of that game had me in actual tears. So for a story to affect me that much, it's number 1. It's number 1 for me. Like, tell me if I'm wrong.
I think you're right. Because it's stories, plural. It's not just the one, is it? And each one is so different. It's got its own tone that meets it matches the character that it's talking about, and it just gets all of them pitch perfect and brings them all together in this overarching narrative that, like you say, by the end, you're totally into it. So yeah, got to be top. Joel,
you don't look so happy about this.
No, I am happy with it, purely because I think both Horizon and Prey, are they're stories in the game, and you play the game and then you get a cutscene and it advances the story forwards. What Remains of Edith Finch is literally, there are like I say, there are parts of that really, it's telling you a story, but then it's through gameplay is getting you to do something that really hammers home the point the story's trying to get across in some senses, in a way that I've not experienced. Like, there are some moments like that. Like, even still, I can see them as clear as day in my head, even months after playing it. And yeah, but for me, Horizon and Prey are both like joint number 2, and yeah, What Remains of Edith Finch is just on a different level with regards to the gameplay and narrative.
Yeah, what you're saying there, the one that comes to mind when you talk about that for me is the fish and playing that
Lewis
crazy
Finch's story.
Is that Lewis? Thank you. I've only played it through once, so I'm not great on the names, but I'm actually I think I might play it through again. That the way that mixes the gameplay with this, it's just incredible. It puts you in that character's shoes. And the other one, which is a very simple one for me, was on the swing. Very short one. It has such a great sense of impending doom. But yet it's also hopeful at the same time. It's incredible. And then there's the toddler one in the bath. And it's just like, oh, that is the most beautiful and yet tragic, upsetting, but yet like hopeful and freeing experience. It's how they hit so many different emotional notes with such a deftness and such a creativity. It's unbelievable. I don't think I've ever experienced really any other game quite as incredible as that when it comes to the way it delivers story and gameplay together.
You couldn't achieve it on any other medium, really.
Nope.
Prey or Horizon, you could arguably write a book for, read it, and enjoy reading the book. What Remains of Edith Finch would make a shit book, probably. It's about how it works with the gameplay, and that's what sets it way apart from anything else this year, I think.
Well, that's number one. We almost didn't talk about it because it was so obvious. So I'm glad we did. So Prey and Horizon. Joel, you have had it's basically all your picks, Joel. You've done well in this category, mate. Prey and Horizon. Ooh, neither of them have I think you made an argument for Horizon that pips it just over Prey for me.
Which was the fact that the two mysteries, the sort of world and the character and how they're intertwined.
Yeah, I find the Horizon world fractionally more original and compelling than the Prey world. Though both are brilliant. I just Horizon's robot dinosaurs in a post-apocalypse are slightly more interesting than a derelict space station. But character-wise, though, Prey does an amazing job with, but so does Horizon, but Prey does an amazing job with the ancillary writing, the documentation you find, the emails and stuff like that, worlds which are filled with them. If you spend the time to read them, it really draws you into that universe. It's a tricky one, these two, splitting these two apart. Richard, what do you think?
I think I agree with you. It's going to have to be Horizon. I think Prey's story works despite the setting. It feels quite monotone for me. I'm not a big fan of the space station itself, and I
love the design. The design of it's pretty cool. I'll say that. But the layout.
I don't know. It just feels very, very obvious to me.
Okay.
It's like it's not as inventive as Horizon.
Are you happy with that, Joel? I know you basically said joint number two for you.
So
put them in either or. I don't really mind. To me, they were almost both equal. I asking me to choose one or the other is just so hard. So I'm happy to Horizon second, Prey third. I would be happy the other way around as well.
Okay, so that's two categories down. Best story narrative goes to What Remains of Edith Finch, followed by Horizon Zero Dawn, followed by Prey. Take a breath, guys. Still got 3 categories to go. First episode here. It's 11:30. We're trucking along. It's going well. It's going well. Right, we're up to best character. Now, this is where I feel Wolfenstein II should definitely get some talking about. That's the first one on the list. Hand of Fate 2, The Dealer. Yeah, I've already cut Nier Automata because you guys haven't played it. What Remains of Edith Finch? Edith. Okay, it's going to be an interesting one conversation about that. Uncharted The Lost Legacy, Chloe. Horizon Zero Dawn, Aloy. Well, I know this game you guys haven't played. Dream Daddy, Amanda. It's a quality game. You guys should play that. Night in the Woods, May, which you also haven't played. And then Richard has just snuck one on there. You snuck it on, the dirty bugger. Hellblade. Senua. All right, I'm going to start right at the top. Wolfenstein 2. Right, so Joel, yeah. Story is not his strength, but it's characters. Oh my God, I actually put here when I put this in, everyone for character because I could, but especially Anya, BJ, and
who's the resistance leader woman?
Yeah, I think I wrote it on it. Grace.
Yeah, she's
Grace.
great.
She's
a great
amazing,
character, isn't she? Yeah.
But for me, it's that scene to right at the end, Rich.
No.
You haven't got, I'm sorry, but you're gonna. I've got to explain it, Joel. But it's Anya saving BJ in that cutscene. He's taking his headset off, right? And she's firing. She throws a grenade, then she's dual wielding.
I know what you mean.
And then exploding, and she rips off her clothes, gets covered in blood, and it's like the most sort of like cathartic, romantic, erotic, but also disturbing imagery you'll ever see all at once. It confused my body and my mind, and it was glorious.
Did you replay it? Because what you actually notice is, as part of the grenade throw, her jacket's set on fire. That's why she rips it off. Yeah, because the first time I watched it, I was just like, "Holy shit, that's some proper getting." I'm getting off on this bloodshed stuff. But then when you watch it,
though, it's not like she's getting off on it. It's like, I'll try to be more vague now, Rich. It's like,
I think we are being generally reasonably vague. We're talking about one.
It's a cool moment, Rich, but it doesn't really give away any story.
Yeah, no. It doesn't ruin the story. I don't think.
No. But it's just this catharsis, sort of like moment of freedom, of just, you know, there is, like we were talking about, you know, it's not maybe on the same level of
violence, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not the same level either, Finch, but there are layers of emotion and intent behind that moment, and that was a great moment. And BJ throughout, who would have thought? Anybody? I mean, this was true to the previous game as well.
Bear in mind, Richard is. You don't want to spoil it for him. He's also frozen as well.
I wasn't going to spoil it. Okay. Are you still there, Rich? You're having some internet problems, I think, mate. You keep dropping in and out. Who would have thought they could make BJ Blazkowicz a compelling character with a sort of narration element to the whole game, and you feel for him, you care about BJ and what he's been through and how. And in this one, of course, early on, which I think, Richard, this is when he loses his leader. What's her name? The woman who gets killed right at the beginning. Caroline. When she's beheaded, and he's basically talking to her in his mind, like, "I'll be with you soon. You know, thank you for helping me through that moment, but I know I'm going to die." And it's just so, there's such a sadness and such a sort of resignation to everything he's doing in that first act. And then when, of course, that problem is resolved, it then all becomes about, you know, Anya and his unborn children. And I think, and then, like you said, Grace, she is the most, she's like the awesomest sort of Black Panther-esque resistance leader. She's just kicks ass. And I really liked the German character as well on board the U-boat.
Frau Engel. She's
Frau Engel's daughter. No, the daughter.
Oh,
I really like the daughter.
I know who you mean. Yeah.
I can't remember her name, but there isn't a character in there I didn't enjoy. I didn't relish seeing them in a cutscene and stuff. I went around the U-boat and I was talking to everybody on the Evans Hammer and stuff, and just really getting to know everybody and doing the little side quest things. I even really loved the monkey cat, which I thought was hilarious. I don't know if you can call it a character, but I want one. Adorable. Anything you want to add? Or, you know, disagree with?
No, I think, they're great moments, and they do a lot of character building on BJ specifically. I think there's some really strong moments. It hits you hard from the start. The sort of his abusive father, not just to himself but to his mother, him witnessing it. There are some other growing up in the kind of early throes of slavery as well. So there's that scene where he's talking to the kids, and they're like, "We can't play with each other," but they're just children. They've only been told they can't play with each other. They don't understand. They just want to play with each other, and it's really humbling when you see that kind of thing. You see that the views and thoughts of the parents basically forced upon their children, but you know how children playfully can work around those. They've got lots of strong characters in that game. They've done very, very excellent job on the characters they put in there. They're very compelling, very fun and engaging, and quite varied as well, actually.
No, it's like they started with archetypes, and then they went, "What do I need to do to turn this archetype into a character? You know, to actually take it beyond just the black resistance leader, the big hunky dude, the sexy wife. You know, what do I need to do to make these real?" and they did it in the previous game, and they've taken those characters that are surviving characters in the first game, and then obviously the new characters in this game, and they take them in some really good directions. The only one I didn't feel like got fleshed out as much as I'd like was the second resistance leader, the pastor, who they find it, the pastor, not pastor.
Yes, the religious guy.
Really, he's just stolen clothes off of Guy. He wasn't actually a religious guy. I like that bit. But they didn't really do much with him other than he brews really strong moonshine. That was kind of his only real characteristic. But I think there's Anya, man. Anya for me is the standout. I absolutely love her. She has such an incredible inner strength. And did you guys like read all the documents from the first game? And you know how she's talking about her sister? Did you get to the revelation of what that really was?
Oh, God, if I did, I can't remember.
The reason I'm mentioning it now is there's this great revelation about Anya in the first game where she has like a collectible document thing, like a lot of elements do. And she's talking in her diary about her sister and how her sister's awesome and she's killed all these Nazis. And it actually turns out, no, she's just projecting. She doesn't have a sister. It's been her. So she's been killing Nazis. She was killing and murdering Nazis way before she ever met BJ. And I actually think she, in many ways, is a stronger fighter than he is. I mean, he's full of self-doubt throughout this game. He's unsure of his abilities. And yet she never wavers. She knows what she's got to do for her kids and for the world she wants them to grow up in. And that gives her such an incredible strength and depth. I love her. She's just amazing. Absolutely fantastic character. Yeah, so I'm not going to put it in orange yet. I'm not going to put it in top 3 yet, but I think it's a strong contender. I'll cut Hand of Fate, the dealer, because yeah, you guys ain't played. All right, so what remains of Edith Finch? Edith, obviously the main narration force behind the entire game. Obviously, her narration is kind of what deals that a massive blow at the end of the game. But do you feel that she's a standout enough character? Which is a game that's so much about the ensemble. What do you guys think?
I don't feel that she's enough of a character. She's much more of almost a blank. She's not a blank slate. Obviously, it's about her and her family. But you're in her body. You're looking through her eyes. You feel her experience. The character is more your experience of what she goes through rather than observing her herself.
She's a conduit. Yeah.
Yeah.
For the story.
An avatar.
An avatar. Yes. Do you agree, Joel?
I think I agree with that. I don't think. I think that she's not. You play her, don't you? And she's just another one of the small short stories that comes together at the end of it. So, yeah, I agree with you guys.
While I'm doing cutting quick stuff, I'll cut Night in the Woods May. I kind of talked about that in story and narrative. The kind of character she is. She's very well defined. She goes through a really interesting journey in that game, but you guys not played it. Dream Daddy. Do you guys know what Dream Daddy is?
I listened to the music for it. That gives me an idea.
I could do.
So Dream Daddy is a visual novel. It's in which you are you can decide, right? So you create your daddy, who you are at the beginning of the game, and you have this amazing daughter called Amanda. She's like an older teen about to go away to college, and she's basically been your support and confidant for many years after losing your partner. You can choose if it was a man or a woman, and you have this amazing bond and relationship, and the writing is so witty and charming and correct and just feels very genuine. And then the rest of the game, the crux of the game, is it's a dating simulator. So you go to this cul-de-sac, which is basically populated purely with single male fathers who you can then flirt with and hook up with in various ways. And it transcends this kind of dating sort of sim niche because of the quality of the writing, because it's so funny and it's just so charming and sweet. And Amanda is just this amazingly sort of pithy but well realized teen character. She reminds me a bit, Richard, of some of the characters from like Life is Strange and stuff. So she's got the ear to the writing is very, very good. But you guys not played that weird shit. You don't do that shit. I mean, I understand that, so I won't force it on you. But it's a fun little experience from this year. So we're already down, kind of by process of elimination, to 4 games on this list. Richard, do you have any love? I put Chloe as an example, but do you have any love for any of the characters from Lost Legacy?
I don't think so. No. They're kind of two-dimensional. I mean, Uncharted's well known for its snappy dialogue, but none of the characters in it feel real to me. It's kind of like Indiana Jones, isn't it? It's very comic booky, Pulp Fiction sort of style characters. And they're great for as long as the journey lasts, and it's all good fun. But I don't think they get under my skin in any real sense. So, yeah, I wouldn't pick Chloe out above anybody else in the game, to be honest.
Well, that's fair enough. I kind of put that in because I knew you'd played it, expecting you to be an advocate for it, but I think I know what you want to be an advocate for. So, yeah. So we're down to two I haven't mentioned yet now, which is Horizon Zero Dawn's Aloy and Hellblade Senua. I think Aloy definitely deserves to be on this list because more than anything, Ashley Birch's voice acting there behind Aloy is some of the best of the year. I think she really brings that character to life. I don't think the writing is necessarily fantastic. It's good, but it's a lot of the situation she finds herself in, a lot of the dialogue she has with other characters is kind of like what you'd expect in that world. But yeah, the strength of Aloy comes from her interaction with the world, and she brings a sort of a grounded connection for the player. And like I said, the voice acting really elevates the entire performance. Is there anything you guys wanted to add?
You should remember with Aloy as well, you grow with her. She starts the game as a child and you get to see her grow up, and she becomes closer to you for that, I think. So when you play the game proper with Aloy as a grown woman, you've got a lot invested in that already. So yeah, I think she's a good contender for one of the best characters this year.
So look, this is cool, by the way. We got three top characters here. They're all women, which is pretty fucking awesome, by the way. Hellblade Senua. Now, you kind of touched on this a bit already, Richard, in the previous category, but is there anything you want to talk about the character specific?
I just think Senua is so well-rounded. The development of Hellblade is a passion project for Ninja Theory, who've broken away to do this and just published it themselves. This is something they obviously care very much about, and Senua is just this distillment of their whole agenda to teach us what it is to have mental illness, to have us empathize with that, to understand what it's like. And the journey, you guys haven't finished it yet. It does get a lot better from where I think you were up to. But the whole journey that Senua goes on, it's so tragic and heartrending and just believable. It feels like a real experience because it's based on real experiences. That she's got to be in the top three. It's my favorite character this year by some way because it just feels so authentic.
Joel?
In my brief time with her, yeah, she's the one. She's my curiosity about finding out what's going to happen to her, how this psychosis is going to ultimately play out. Because obviously you're playing this game and naturally you're hoping, well, are things going to get better? But the reality might be very different. So she is the most exciting point of this game, and it is what makes me want to go back and play it. And I know through grit, I will go back and I will finish it. I just haven't done that to this point yet. And yeah, I was really enjoying the way that she was playing out up till that point where I didn't go back. So I think she's well worthy of her spot on the top three.
Would you pick Aloy as number one, or would you go for a Wolfenstein? Because I don't think you're going to pick Senua.
Okay, so for me, it's Aloy. Has been my.
This is difficult. I think.
Yeah.
It sounds like we've all got different number ones. I would definitely pick Wolfenstein for the ensemble, but if we're going to be specific for Anya. But even if it wasn't just for Anya, I mean, like, Christ, just about every female character in that game, including the evilest Frau Engel, is an engaging, for Christ's sake, their take on Hitler is brilliant. Just hilarious, tragic, disgusting, perverse, everything you'd expect a man of that sort of unfathomable power who's not been told no in decades. He is taken to that extreme, and it's completely believable. You know, I think they extrapolate those, like I said, those archetypes, those stereotypes, and they take them into just the most brilliant directions. I feel like Aloy is great, and I really like her performance, but it feels kind of safe. I don't feel like they're trying to push any in the way of envelopes with those characterizations. And obviously, you could argue the exact opposite for Senua, that they are doing something with the characters here that has never been done before. But however, one of the things that turns me off a little bit about Senua is kind of what you said, Richard, was that she's almost an educational tool more than she is a character. And while I respect that, I feel like the character has possibly been formed out of a desire to educate around mental health issues more than as a character in her own right.
I think it's the other way around. There's something to learn from her because she is real. I mean, I don't think that's a downside to her at all. I think that's what the positive element of Senua is, that she is so real that you can pull something from her out of the game. It's not just a game character. And I think that's certainly true of Aloy. You know, she's got no relevance outside of Horizon Zero Dawn. Senua, you take that away with you once you finish.
I would argue, Richard, that the relevance of the Wolfenstein II characters have never been more relevant, because the one story you should take away from that is that everybody should punch Nazis in the face.
Yeah.
Whenever the opportunity arises.
Yeah, that's why I said it about Horizon and not Wolfenstein. I agree with you.
Oh, this is tricky, this one. I feel like this. I really want to draw a line in the sand on Wolfenstein here. I haven't fought for one yet really that hard. And I really... Oh, I think Wolfenstein... I don't think it will win. It could win any other category, really. And I think its strength, it's the reason you play that game is those characters. The reason you want to complete that game is to see what they do next, how that ensemble interacts, what BJ does next, how he deals with his father, how he deals with Frau Engel, how he interacts with Hitler. All of that. That is what you want to experience.
Can I just be a pain in the butt here? The category is best character, and you're using everybody in the game. That's unfair.
No, that's fair. No, that's a fair argument. That is a fair argument. I would be willing to compromise on those grounds, I think. Damn you, Richard. All right, what about Senua, Wolfenstein, Aloy in that order? 1, 2, 3.
Which one was one?
One is Senua, then Wolfenstein, then Aloy.
I've got to put I've got to go with.
Yeah,
Aloy.
no, that's no.
Aloy's the one for me. I think as it's like Richard said, you play her from her childhood. You go through those early bits, those moments of being an initial outcast, and the other children don't want to play with you. They throw stones. You're granted a choice on how you want to react to that. And you see how that shapes the character you become when you're the teenager. She uses that as ammunition, turns it into fuel to try and prove that she's worthy of being in this tribe. She's not, she's not an outcast. And then as the game envelops, when you finally, during the scenes where you finally revealed, where your origins are from, what you are, who you are, and what the reason for your existence is on Earth. I don't know if either of you have got to that point in the game, and it's just such a, it's as a player, I think you have an idea that this is where it's going to be coming up to before that. And then it's revealed and things. And then suddenly how you go from the outcast of this tribe to this tribe sort of calling you their savior, basically. And the moment that she just turns around and says, fuck you guys, you like literally left me as a fucking outcast as a child. You are horrible to me and shit. And now here you are worshipping me as your savior. Go fuck yourselves, literally. And then there are other moments later in the game that she builds upon it. Like the character builds, and as you go through the world, she becomes like, the greatest warrior in the world, to the point where the king's trying to proposition you. It's like, he's like, I've been looking for a wife, and she's just like, nah, screw yourself, mate. I'm not that kind of woman. And things.
And script sounds amazing. I've got to play this game.
She goes into a cauldron. She finds this dictionary of like bad language, and she's like, I'm going to use these words. Fuck you, cunt. Up in your face, nigga. Like, and she's just dropping it all over the place. And it's just like, wow, what a third act.
I think just for me, she really worked. I really got on board with it. I found her story really interesting. I agree with you. She's a computer game character. I turn the game on, and she exists in that world. She doesn't bring anything outside of the game into the real world. I don't really carry much of it. I've got these. Yeah, there are great moments and things I reflect on, but yeah, she doesn't change my perception of anything of warrior women from the past per se or anything like that. So
you see, I feel like there's a little bit more to take away from Wolfenstein than there is Aloy, but I've been checkmated a little bit with Richard with his technicality there. I wouldn't want to pick just one character from Wolf 2 to really advocate for. I mean, Anya is the one that stays with me, but there's a lot of great moments throughout that cast. So all right, Hellblade, Aloy, Wolf. I mean, yeah, that's where the wind's blowing, isn't it?
If you can't pick one, I think that's fair for the category.
Yeah, motherfuckers. I'm going to get you back later. I will be so nice later. Right, so that's the end of best character, including some bad language from me. I apologize if I took that too far, but I like to improvise, and it was all in character, and obviously, yes, that's fine. Best character was Hellblade Cinema, then it was Horizon Zero Dawn Aloy, and then it was Wolfenstein 2 everyone. Yeah, sure. It should tell you all you need to know about Wolfenstein 2, really. We now get on to possibly the biggest category. I think maybe even bigger than best game. I don't know. I feel like we'll be able to cut this down quite quick. But we're on to best style, and style is kind of tricky. It's not just how pretty the game looks, though that plays a part. It's not just visual fidelity, but it's things like UI design, how characters interact with things. How the game vibes with you. You know what style is when you see it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, okay. Long ass list here. Prepare yourselves. Pyre, Tacoma, Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle, Battle Chasers, Night War, The Evil Within 2, Super Mario Odyssey, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Nier Automata, Persona 5, Aero, What Remains of Edith Finch, The Surge, Thumper, Rhyme, Tokyo 42, Nex Machina, Little Nightmares, Cuphead, Dream Daddy, Ruiner, and Night in the Woods. The other thing about best style is it's a kind of something you can appreciate even if you've not played the game or if you've not played a lot of the game, which is why I think there's more games in this list than maybe any other list. So I think we should start off with cutting stuff.
Yeah, I think there's quite a lot there that I can cut.
Yeah. We'll do a couple of rounds of cutting. Joel, do you want to go first, mate?
I think we should probably, and I think I might have been the person who added these to the list, but I think ultimately, yes, I think we can cover Mario versus Rabbids and Super Mario Odyssey. They're both very pretty looking games. They're very cute, but actually, read through that list. There are, when I'm thinking of style, I'm thinking about using the designer of the game. They had a vision for what they wanted it to be. They were trying to achieve something unique and special, and they want to use the audio and they want to use the graphics, the visuals to convey that style and capture it. And those two they're just Nintendo games. They look cute, they're fantastic, they're charming, but that's
the word.
Killer candidates on there.
That's the word, though.
I'm close to
Joel. Charming. I think charm has a lot to do with style. And I think something like Super Mario Odyssey, and you're talking about music, like Super Mario Odyssey's, while it could be considered typically Nintendo, I think has a pretty good, strong style.
Not distinct, though, is it? I think that's where I think I'm with Joel on this, that things like Mario Odyssey, Mario and Rabbids, they have a great style, but they aren't distinct. They are of their canon. They don't have their own visual flair as such. They just look like a good example of what the previous games were, All
right, Rich, your turn.
Stuff to take out. I would take out the Surge. I don't think it's got a particularly great style. I think it does well with some very rough parts. But yeah, style is not its forte. Evil Within 2, really enjoyed it. But again, it's very rough around the edges. I would not be bigging that up for how.
I think I put that in there for style because of monster design. I'm thinking of the goo creatures more than anything. Also, things like with the serial killer and how he stops time. and some of those environments that he's manipulated, and how that looks, the sort of neo-Gothic thing that's going on in a lot of that game. I think it has quite a strong visual style, and obviously the sound design is very important to a game like that as well, with the monsters and things like that.
It doesn't feel unique though, because a lot of what Within is doing is reimagining some of those Gothic trappings from Resident Evil 4.
Well, I can understand that. That's fair. Yeah, though, like I said, those monsters and the time stop mechanic feel pretty unique.
Yeah,
not mechanic,
that's more
but
of a
style.
Gameplay, innovation than a style thing.
Okay, I mean,
to me,
that's fair enough. I kind of put that on there thinking of you, but if you're not going to fight for it, then I'll take it off.
Well, I don't know if it would help to define what we think style is a bit
more.
Well,
we kind of have, but it's hard to define, isn't it?
Yeah, to me, I'm thinking just more visual and auditory flair, something that sets it out as a distinct artistic object. And the gameplay aside, I don't think that fits into it.
Okay. My turn. Oh, this is tricky, this one, isn't it? Especially as I put most of them on here. God, I'd love to cut Cuphead, but you guys would kill me.
Get out of town.
I'll cut.
If you do that, I think.
I'll cut Dream Daddy just because you guys haven't played it, but it has got the most charming, clean, beautiful artwork. Just absolutely wonderful. But it's you guys should look it up. Let me think. What else would I lose?
What about Rhyme?
Well,
I really enjoyed Rhyme, but I don't feel like it's got its own identity. Really, a lot of its visual aesthetic is just lifted from Last Guardian.
It's mostly through the layout of the architecture of the game. I think was what I think was Rhyme's most distinctive element. But yeah, it just felt like it didn't feel like anything completely new. A lot of reused ideas, I think. Yeah, I'd agree with you on Rhyme.
Okay, that was Richard rather than me, but all right. Let me see if I can think of another one to cut. How about The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild?
Ooh, I think
so. You're talking about distinctive visual and auditory flair.
Yeah.
While it's a gorgeous open world, absolutely love that open world. I don't feel like it's doing much different. It has an art style which is kind of like semi-cel shaded, but the world isn't really. It doesn't make me think of, man, that's stylish. That's really cool. I don't get a lot of that.
If you for a series that's got so many games as Zelda, if you looked at one screenshot, any screenshot of Breath of the Wild, you'd know what game it was. It's the antithesis of Mario Odyssey that you can absolutely tell from one game to the other. This is not like any other Zelda game. It's not like any other game visually. You say it's just a bit of cel shading. What else has done that?
So Borderlands.
No, come on. Borderlands does not look anywhere near as good as Zelda Breath of the Wild.
I'll pipe in with my thoughts on Zelda and its style. I think, can we cut it from the list at the moment? No, there are many other games that we should be culling off before Breath of the Wild. But I always go back to, I think Wind Waker actually had a more distinctive style in contrast to what the traditional Zelda feel is than I get from Breath of the Wild. I think Breath of the Wild is it's a hybrid almost between what they did with Wind Waker and what their sort of standard recipe is with regards to the styling of it. It's the
middle ground, isn't it? Because after Wind Waker, they went to Twilight Princess when everyone said, "No, make it more realistic, please, mate," and no one really wanted that. So yeah, this is more of a detailed, cel shaded look that meets that middle ground.
All right, so that stays for now. Okay. I'm going to cut Ruiner. Have you guys seen or experienced any Ruiner?
I've looked
a few times,
but I've not played.
It's got a really cool but super derivative cyberpunk look to it.
Yeah,
right?
like
So
it's neon.
Yeah, drenched in neon, dark. Like evil, just horrible corporate world. Drenched in rain. They've watched a lot of Blade Runner. And it's a cool as fuck look, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't really do anything new with it, you know? And I'm trying to even look past the fact that the game itself is pretty shit. But the yeah, this isn't about that. But the yes, it plays like garbage. But I think the visual fidelity. I mean, put it this way: I had it on, and my wife walked into the room, and she went, "Wow, what's that? That looks really cool." And she doesn't really comment like that about games very often, but it made me think about it. Like, yeah, it does look really, really cool. It's just not fun to play, but it's. I just feel like it's too derivative to really hang. I'm thinking about what's going to end up potentially in the top 3 here, and I just don't think that one will at this point. So we'll cut that.
Tacoma, I'd want to cut out because
style is pretty much all that thing's got going for it.
Well, this was my thought. I nearly bought it in the sale last week because I thought I like walking simulator stuff. But after Edith Finch, that's just got nothing going for it visually. It just looked really dull.
It's trying to be a vision of corporate space. So a corporatized space station, you know, like where everybody is like a work slave almost. And I think in that regard, its style is very reflective of what the narrative is, and it works in that regard. You know, it has this whole AR element, which I think is an interesting stylistic choice and a gameplay choice. The whole everything you interact with everything with overlays and everything pops up in like AR. Imagine a world where, you know, HoloLens was for everyone all the time. That's kind of what that world is, and they deal with that really well. It's not like a world with, it's not a style of flair and over the top visuals, but it's a very grounded style. And I think, you know, they achieved exactly what they were trying to do in that area. Do you see what I mean? It's like look at Gone Home. Mm-hmm. That isn't necessarily like an over the top style, but man, do they nail the art design of an early 90s house, don't they? I mean, like, you know, everything up to the fact that, you know, all the VHS tapes with the X-Files labeled on them and stuff like that. You know, they do that, but with a corporatized space station into.
Yeah, I suppose it's that AR stuff that really put me off, because you've got all these memories of people that were once on the ship, and they're represented by these neon fluctuating outlines, and it just looked really ugly to me.
It's meant to, though. In its defense, it's kind of meant to, but I can understand. Well, I'm happy to cut it. We'll cut that. It's interesting, but yes. Battle Chasers for me, I think, is a super stylish game. Do you remember me talking about this when I reviewed it? It's basically covered in Joe Madura artwork, which he is a beautiful comic book artist. And it has like 3 different art styles depending on what you're doing. If you're doing the turn-based battle, if you're in the overworld, if you're like exploring an isometric area, or if you're, that's 4 styles, I guess, or if you're in like dialogue with other characters. And each of them is distinctive and yet cohesive, and they all work really well together. And it's just clean lines, beautiful fantasy artwork, you know, really leaning heavily on some of those tropes and stereotypes, but doing them in a unique enough way, you know, from the interface design, and every one of those different elements of the game looks just fabulous. Joel has had enough. He's out. What do you think, Richard? Are you looking Joel? It up now?
No.
Right, okay. So I'm just talking to myself then. I get used to it. Joel just ran off. Didn't even mute his microphone. How unprofessional.
I have already looked it up earlier. Yeah, I think if I was going to pick fault with it, some of the images look as if they don't quite mesh. So characters and backgrounds seem a bit too distinct to me. But yeah, the individual elements look nice, and it's kind of got a similar vibe to Bastion, isn't it? That sort of hyper color, but more detailed than Bastion, but that sort of hyper color, painterly look to it.
Did you want to pick another one you want to talk about?
What else is on the list? Stuff that, should we talk about stuff that I like? Because I've
however you want to do it, man. Do it.
I've got to mention Cuphead.
Mm.
No, Cuphead exists for its style. That's its whole purpose of being, really. And I like it as a game. I think it reinvents stuff that I liked about gaming in the 90s. So Gunstar Heroes is a heavy inspiration for Cuphead. Big boss rushes, pretty much all the way through. There's a few stages where there's platform shooting, not very many. It's mainly about the bosses, and that's a really good excuse to get the old ink and paintbrush out and do some really creative, authentic looking 20th century cartoons.
Richard, I can't let this in the top 3.
What's he
Cuphead.
You're talking about Cuphead. Oh, Jesus, Ben.
I can't. I can't. I hate it. I was playing it last night. I hate the look of that game.
But do you not think that the minute that they started that game, they went off with a design intent of what they wanted to achieve, and my God, they achieved it. There is nothing else like that I've seen.
However, if there was something I put on best style here, and one of you guys went, I absolutely hate it, it wouldn't make the list. And I've hated this since day one, and I've played it, and it does actually. Last night, Richard, I was playing it and I was enjoying it a bit more. Right, I was getting into the whole boss rush thing, and I was progressing through the game and finding my vibe. But I still fucking hate how it looks. I absolutely hate it. And I can't. It's art, it's an art style. You can't decide ahead of time. Yeah, if you're going to hate something or if you're going to like something, it's just the way you feel, and I just hate it. We'll leave it on for now. I
was going to say, I almost refuse to let you cut that off.
We'll leave it on for now. I won't put it in red on the list yet, but I just hate it. Kind of like in a way, I really like Battle Chasers art, but nobody wanted to back me on that. But none of you hated it at the same time. It's just like, oh my God, I hate it.
Good, but Cuphead, that no game this year has done more to define its own look. There's nothing else that looks like it, nothing else that comes close to achieving its vision like that. It's so bespoke in being about its style. You can't cut it from this. That's mad.
All right, we'll talk. We'll come back to it. We'll come back to it. Joel, Little Nightmares.
Oh, this is dripping with atmosphere. It's so visually, I think it takes its inspiration from Inside and from Limbo. It's very grey, very washed out, minimal color in places and things, and then the setting, the environment, the atmosphere that the environment generates, this weird thing called the Moor, and then the bloody as you're going through the world, and you have to, obviously as a little person, you have to avoid these kind of big, grotesque looking people. I mean, the chef, I've never seen 6 chins like animated so well in such a sickening fashion. And then as you go later in the game, it's just it looks fantastic. Basically, the game itself is, gameplay is average, but the look and the style of that game is amazing. And the animation on the sort of they're not really enemies, they're just obstacle characters that you have to avoid rather than interact with. It's just incredible as well. It's fantastic.
I feel like maybe my counter, I agree with what you're saying, but my counter would be it's a bit too much like Inside, isn't it?
I think from the greys and what, so it would be, but that's the kind of argument I'd pull out when I'm trying to decide whether I want to put it as number 2 versus number 1, if you know what I mean. This is where visually that game was stunning, and I don't want you to cull it yet.
Okay, that's fine. We are going to have to try and make some cuts. What about What Remains of Edith Finch? Right, so sorry. Obviously, the story is amazing. Obviously, we've put that as number 1. The style, it is a cohesive world. There is like a quirkiness to the world where it's almost real, but not quite. Especially as you progress into the game and the surreal aspects of the house, and the fact that the house is designed in such a sort of quirky, weird, odd way that doesn't really make any physical, logical sense, and yet somehow it's standing. For example, I remember getting to the top of the house and there's like a boat a boat is part of the house, and I was just like, what the fuck? But it works, doesn't it? It works as part of the mindset of this crazy, completely nuts family that has survived somehow through all these years of tragedy after tragedy after tragedy.
It does work. I'll tell you what sets it back, though, is technical performance. And that's something we haven't mentioned for the other games. But to me, Edith Finch is hampered style-wise by how it performs technically.
The pop-in you're talking about, yeah?
Pop-in, it looks quite low res, looks kind of washed out.
So I played it on the PC. Didn't have any performance problems on the PC.
Well, that's console plebs.
Yeah, so that's
Xbox One X though. I played it on, but yeah, I did notice it. Like when you first load into a level or an area, it could take a little moment or two to pop in the textures and things like that. I didn't really find it much of a problem for me. I can't say it bothered me that much, but
it didn't hurt the game. But you know, if we're talking about style, there are better examples on this list that didn't suffer those problems.
No, I think that's fair. I don't think this is a kind of the category you need to fight for that game on. Oh, this is getting difficult now, isn't it, guys? This is getting difficult. Right, a couple of smaller games that neither of you maybe have played. I know Richard has now been playing one of them, but I want to talk about Tokyo 42 first. You guys have seen that game, though, yeah?
I've played it.
Right. Oh, you have played it. That game is literally style above everything else.
It certainly has a distinct and nice style. It's very pretty looking. I mean,
it's not just about it being a nice style, though, is it, Joel? The fact that it's this forced, weird, isometric viewpoint actually makes gameplay difficult at times because of how that game looks.
It's got gameplay. Just trying to use a sniper rifle in that game is the stupidest thing I've ever come across. Well, at least in isometric video game shooting.
But the style is like this crazy tilt shift kind of world, all of neons but flat.
It's very neon. It has kind of echoes of, you know, when you play Portal and you see in Portal they've got the videos and the tutorial things as you're going through it kind of reminds me of that sub part of Portal a little bit in it sort of its styling of the little people as they go around and stuff like that. Not doing a very good job of explaining that.
Kind of. I mean, it's difficult to describe Tokyo 42. It's got you need to watch videos of it. Like not even screenshots do it justice, really. It is a very unique looking world, and I think it's not anywhere else on these deliberations because I feel like it puts everything behind its style, and it's literally the only thing. Yeah, it really has going for it almost. Next Machina. That's pretty stylish, isn't it, Rich?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's pretty stylish.
Yeah, mate. It's the way Next Machina for me is the way in which the music and the visuals combine with Housemarque's amazing kind of gameplay, and then the way the voxels will break apart when you destroy enemies, and everything just oozes this kind of futuristic. I don't even know what to describe it. It's a really nicely distilled shooter, isn't it? Like
the neon is so clean, it's almost liquid. It just oozes off the screen, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And just the opening level. I only played it today. You were asking us to listen to some of the best music of the year before we started recording today. Next Machina is on that list, and after 8 bars of the theme title, I'd bought the game.
Yeah, I wasn't even trying to do that, but I'm glad you did. It's a cool game.
Yeah. So I played through it this morning, and just from the first level, when the little guy flies into the first stage, just how smooth that looks and how cool it looks when he flies in. And I just went, oh fuck! I don't know why I said oh fuck, but just something about that moment. It just looks so cool. I was like, yes, I'm in. And yeah, from there, I couldn't put it down until I got to the last boss. So a lot of that is, because it's accessible, Housemarque have got that down. They know what twin stick shooters are about. But just, it's so cool to see everything explode and flash and glow.
From what I remember, it's also got some really nice menu design and UI design. Is that fair? It's been a while since I played it, but I remember it being very as clean.
I don't think that's quite as good as the game itself.
Okay.
It's it looked a bit drab in comparison, but the gameplay, yes, it's up there for style.
Night in the Woods you guys have at least seen screenshots and video of it, yeah? Night in the Woods? Yeah, so you know it's got this really distinctive, like I mentioned earlier, like Wes Anderson style, animated style, which is all 2D, and it's almost like papercraft, almost like where the like the cutouts. It looks clean, and its presentation is always excellent. Everything, the way the music and the dialogue and all the speech bubbles all interact, and yeah, it's just got a really simple. It's not trying to do anything too flashy, but it just works for what is. It's a style that has been chosen because I think they must have looked at what they were doing narratively and gone, well, this is very grounded and very realistic. Well, let's put this anthropomorphic characters in this sort of weird town and like, you know, elongating things in strange ways for building designs and stuff like that, because it makes the game more interesting, and it makes it more palatable in a way and it also works as like a counter to the quite grounded storytelling, and it just all comes together really, really well. So I'm reluctant to cut that, but we're at the point where I'm reluctant to cut just about everything on this list. How about Aero, guys? We've all played that now, yeah?
Yeah, Aero's splendid. Really
Joel,
good.
did you have some time on Aero?
Yeah, no, I played quite a lot of it, actually. I quite enjoy it. Sort of flat shaded polygons, but with like you making the best use of modern lighting, I guess, engines. It's kind of really cool. It reminds me a bit of like not early 90s, early 3D games kind of things, but then just much more detailed and you know, with a much more interesting lighting engine. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
And when you're talking about the style, the way that obviously the way that integrates music into that game is brilliant. I love the way that game controls, and that all kind of feeds into the style element. You know, when you're riding on those ribbons and then you're targeting enemies at the same time, and you just feel so stylish and cool as you pull off, you know, these combinations and stuff like that as you're attacking all the different enemies. And then you've got those awesome boss fights as well, which work really well, and everything from the really simple main menu design through to you know, it's one of those games that clicks immediately visually. When you see that game running, you know exactly what you've got to do and how to play it. But to actually describe how the game works is quite complicated. But then you get in it and it just sucks you in. I fucking love Aero. I mean, that's why it's number 5 on my list. I think it's a hidden gem of the year.
It is really good. It's the sort of game that makes you sort of think UI design is easy because it just looks so simple and clean.
Yeah.
Not many people come close to achieving that. So, you know, from the get-go, it looks really good. But in gameplay, I think where Aero really stands out within its genre as well, amongst rhythm action games, is that it doesn't settle for just chugging along to the rhythm of whatever music's playing. It builds the entire levels around those tracks.
Mm-hmm.
Every bar is an event in gameplay, you know? So bosses exist because they work with a particular music track. It's not just incidental. It all totally fits together.
Yep.
And I think more than Thumper, it's probably better than Thumper for its style because of how cleverly it works that way.
Shall we eliminate Thumper for that reason now?
Yeah, that's a tough call because I think Thumper is more distinct visually.
Yeah.
It's got that much darker.
The dark eldritch.
Feel.
Very oppressive. Yeah, it looks great in the 1X, for example. I've maybe the music in Thumper is interesting because the music in Thumper is bespoke for each level that you're talking about, whereas the levels are bespoke in Aero for the music, but obviously the music is a licensed music.
Yeah.
Which you either like or you don't. I personally really like a lot of those tracks. Thumper's music is more percussive, I think. Mm-hmm. It's a bit more of a focus on like this. Yeah, because it's trying to be oppressive and in your face and almost beat you over the head and give you a sense of dread. And yeah, it certainly works at that. And there is an incredible style coming through the kind of minimal look to those levels as you approach the more and more sort of awful, twisted, eldritch horrors that come out of the darkness at you. God, that's hard. I don't know.
I think I kind of want to give it to Aero.
All right. I'm not going to put a red on it yet. I'm going to just talk. I think we should talk about the last couple we haven't talked about, and then we should start suggesting top 3s. See what we can work out. Nier. Now, you guys haven't played Nier, but one of the things it does so well is its style. Its UI design is like a DOS boot system. its menu designs feel like what you would find as the internal menu sort of system if you were an Android. You know, there's very little flair to them because they're all just like, well, why would there be? This is all basic OS for, you know, for your own sort of mind's operating system, if you like. The other thing it does is it mixes and matches different types of gameplay, which obviously affects the style quite a bit. So you've got everything from top-down shooters, third-person action, side-scrolling shooters, and more besides. It's always playing with the kind of ways you're interacting with the world. It's got an incredibly cohesive world design, especially considering how crazy the world gets. For example, the way it presents like the space station base you go to, it puts the world in 2D, like side on, as you interact around it. It's got a really great style. Yeah, really, really cool. Yeah, but I mean, there's,
I mean, from someone who's not played it, I would want to give it its dues.
The only thing I think that works,
when I can judge it on, it just looks cool.
The only thing that works against Nier is that the resolution of things like textures is quite low. And in the open world, it's definitely not like as pretty as a Horizon or a Zelda or something like that. It does look a little bit last gen at times. But that's a visual issue, visual fidelity issue. That's not necessarily a cohesive style issue. So that takes us to the last one we haven't discussed yet, which is Pyre, the newest game from Supergiant. That again, this style in this game is just second to none. Like everything from the UI design to the rights / you know, the competitive sport battle arena bits, to the visual novel elements, to the way in which the text is presented on the screen, to the way in which characters will come up and talk to you, to the kind of the little bits, you know, the like the flavor blurble audio, you know, when you speak to someone, they go, oh, like that, you know, all of that is just on point. Beautiful package. Then the traversal bits when you're moving your caravan around the world are these just psychedelic, gorgeous, visually just pop off the screen, and it's in high resolution artwork, 2D. It just looks fantastic. It looks fantastic at all times. And then there's the style aspect of when you're playing the rights, you know, when you're actually doing that kind of combat arena sports thing, when you do a running sprint, double jump dive into the enemy's goal, and you're like, yeah, motherfucker, that's how the stylish do it. You know, it's kind of like that. There's style in the gameplay, as well as in the presentation. It's fabulously good. So where do we go from here, boys?
We're gonna have some hard decisions here.
Yeah, I think if we just all state our top three, and then that.
Okay, Joel, go ahead.
So for me, my final three are going to be Little Nightmares, Cuphead, and Tokyo 42.
Tokyo 42. That's quite surprising. I mean, but yeah, on a style basis, yeah, yeah, sure. Richard,
Cuphead, Nier, and Breath of the Wild.
We didn't talk about one on this list, and it's possibly the most stylish of all these games, and that's Persona 5. Have you seen the opening, just loading into the fucking opening menu of this game when the jazz punk rock starts and the dudes are it's all 2D cut out animation, and it's just blacks and reds, white. That sort of style continues throughout the whole game. You know, it just looks, and it's so cohesive. Everything looks great in Persona, but you guys, you don't feel Persona, do you? I can understand that.
I kind of do. I played a fair bit of Persona 4. From a style point, yeah, I'm with you. It looks nice.
So, Joel, what did you say?
If you're
Joel said Tokyo 42, Cuphead, Little Nightmares.
And Little Nightmares for me, I think.
Richard said Zelda, Nier, and
Cuphead.
Okay, and
Cuphead, mate, it's there somewhere.
It's just like picking your favorite, child. This, isn't it? Aero, Pyre. And all right, look, I'll acknowledge a Cuphead. I'll acknowledge Cuphead somewhere in this list. I guess I'm obviously the minority in my feelings towards Cuphead, like not just here amongst us three, but globally. I don't think I've really heard anybody talk about not liking it except me. I guess I'm just wrong.
A lot of people don't like the game itself for its gameplay, though. But I think for its style alone, it's you know, if you think about sort of Steamboat Mickey and the cartoons from that sort of past time, it's hit the nail on the head, almost to like the perfect atom. I would say it is just it set out to achieve. You know, it set out to recreate those old cartoonish styles, and it's done it to a T, and you can't fault it for it. And it is distinct, not just this year, but over. I can't think of anything that's ever done anything quite like that myself. So yeah,
I don't think Tokyo 42 makes the list.
it may. I'm not going to fight for it. It was in my top 3 personally. I found it visually very beautiful. It was great eye candy. But yeah, that's me. So I'm more
I want Arrow on this list.
Yeah.
You can put Arrow on, yeah.
I really want Arrow in this top 3. I don't think Zelda makes this list.
Okay.
Not gonna fight for that. You better not all be losing energy already, guys. Just saying. We've got a lot more to do.
No, that's what
beaten.
I'm thinking of. I'm playing the long game. It's not like Zelda ain't going to win anything.
Yeah. No,
What do you mean? What do you mean? Nah, it's not got a chance. This last category has got a hope on it. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
So I think that's so. It's Cuphead and Arrow on the list. We need a third, and then we need to work out order. So I can guess. I'd go Pyre.
I can't really counter it because I've not played Pyre. I've watched some videos of it, and it didn't. I mean, it looked okay. It didn't stand out to me as anything distinct, though, or refreshingly new. It's just taking things that exist already and kind of presenting them well quite nicely. But I've only watched videos though, so there may be more to it. It's just my initial thoughts.
How about you, Rich?
Yeah, I'm a fan of Supergiant, but I haven't bought Pyre yet, so I don't feel like I'm educated enough to say on this one. It doesn't appeal to me as much as their previous 2 games, evidenced by me not buying it. So, yeah, I'd be ambivalent about it being in the top 3, I think.
So someone suggest something else.
Well, how strongly did you feel about Persona?
I think style is one of the strongest things it has going for it. It's just every time I play Persona 5, and I do really enjoy it, it just isn't as good as 4.
How did it compare style-wise to number 4?
I think stylistically it's better than 4.
But is it just kind of evolutionary rather than revolutionary?
Yeah, in a way. I mean, the style of Persona has got a lot to do with how it mixes its visuals with its music. It has this sort of, because it's set in Tokyo, so it's more like, you know, the big city vibe. So it has like this more sort of adult, edgy kind of look to it, and audio as well. It's just in general a much darker game than Persona 4. But yeah, all you've got to do is watch that opening menu cinematic, and you'll know what I mean. It's just unbelievably cool. It's just so cool. It just oozes cool at every moment. Because it's difficult because I can see your arguments on Pyre. I definitely don't think this is for Zelda. I think the problem with Nier is you guys haven't experienced it. I think Thumper's kind of a good shout in a way. I think Tokyo 42 does too much wrong for it to win.
Well, Night in the Woods, that I watched a video of that looks beautifully. You know,
it's a really beautifully realized experience. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing comes together really well. I'd be happy with Night of the Woods. Yeah, I think I'd go Night of the Woods over Persona. What do you say, Rich?
I think I prefer Persona visually. Don't know. Of all of those games, if looking at the stuff I haven't played as well, Little Nightmares is the one that stands out as something that interest me just on how it looks.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised. I was waiting for Joel to chime up to defend that there, and he
like I say, I think it's visually stunning. I think it does have a relatively distinct style, but it is inheriting and borrowing from. We've had Inside, we've had Limbo. It
doesn't look like them to me,
but
it doesn't look like them. I mean, is it more gameplay wise? It resembles those games.
Yeah, so I think gameplay wise, it more resembles a little bit of Inside. Well, and Limbo, kind of, because the gameplay is very similar in both. But it's kind of like Inside's 3D 2.5D look, with Inside's greys and blacks and sort of ash charcoaly feel, with a little color splendid in. I think it's visually, I think it's stunning, and like I say, some of the enemy design and the animations, like I said, there's the really chubby 6-chinned chef who wobbles around the kitchen, and you're like I'm watching him, and it's properly grotesque looking at it. It's really good in that.
It does have a really unsettling look to it, and which is intentional. You know, it's got that's how it's meant to work, isn't it? It does make you feel uncomfortable, and it's in a similar way to Thumper. It feels oppressive in its environments. Obviously, a very different approach, but it does elicit that similar feeling within you. I think, yeah.
It would be.
do you know what? I'd be kind of cool with Little Nightmares, because while I think Night in the Woods and Persona are both very stylish, Little Nightmares, even though I haven't played it and I've just seen video of it, it actually has it's in my head more. Like, I remember it more. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's more distinctive to me. It's not a game I'm particularly interested in playing because of its style, because I find that isn't something, that style isn't conducive to something I want to experience. But that's 100% intentional, that they've achieved that. So what do we think about Little Nightmares at number 3? Or at least third pick? What do we think?
Yeah, I'd be okay with it.
Two or three, I'm happy with.
Right, so I don't want Cuphead at 1.
Well, I don't see how it could be anywhere else.
I can't see how it can't be number 1.
Yeah.
Oh, you motherfuckers! You've let me. You've maybe go in the top 3. Why can't you be happy with it not being number 1?
Because nothing else makes sense.
Life doesn't make sense, Richard.
Not more.
We just survived 2017. The world, they probably won't make it through 2018. Nothing makes sense. Cats living with dogs. Cuphead shouldn't be number 1.
I'll tell you why. It's did you see this video on YouTube you can look at of somebody who literally bought like a 1920s television and then got like an RF modulator and connected the HDMI out of their Xbox into the RF modulator and like put it up, or maybe it was on the PC, I can't remember, basically to get it on this 1920s TV, and you see them tuning it and turn Cuphead on, and yeah, that's perfect.
Oh, it's great. Oh, so funny. Yeah,
I get it, but literally it's the entire hype behind that game, I think, has been mostly around its style as well.
Yes, indeed. All right, so that's the end of best style. At number 1, Cuphead. Fucking assholes. You better remember this. Number 2, Aero, and number 3, Little Nightmares. Are we happy with that?
Yeah, that's good. So, on to biggest disappointment.
Biggest disappointment, which is the category to finish off this episode.
Winning best style.
Yeah, for me, possibly. This is the winner of this in many ways is the biggest loser. So, what I've got on the list so far: Agents of Mayhem, Middle Earth: Shadow of War, Destiny 2, Need for Speed Payback, Star Wars Battlefront 2, a game that's on Richard's top 10 list. Mass Effect Andromeda, Friday the 13th, the game, and Tacoma.
Stand out on that. Stand out. I'm just going to go right in and say Mass Effect.
No, you're right. Mass Effect is definitely in that top 3, isn't it? I mean, one of the hardest reviews I've ever done. One of the biggest letdowns I've ever experienced as a gamer.
On both like you mentally and your wallet.
I'm
going to continuously remind you of how much money you gave EA for that.
I did buy a lot of loot boxes, yes. Hey, look, I don't think Agents of Mayhem gets into the top 3. It was, I actually quite enjoyed my time with it. I just think the game could have been a lot better.
Plus, it didn't have big expectations.
No, exactly.
Anyway, so...
Which plays into disappointment quite strongly. Middle Earth: Shadow of War. Now, the big problem I had with that is it was almost like too much of a good thing. I really had issues, right? So there was obviously some loot box controversy around it as well. But I had some real issues with the fact that the world and the wrapper of that game is really shit. And then whenever you want to go and do anything, you're just getting swamped by lieutenant after lieutenant after lieutenant. And it's almost like they almost made that Nemesis system too prevalent, and it became too much of a thing in the game. Like they lent on it too heavily, and there are elements of it that just don't feel integrated, like the way the loot system works in that game, the way the drops are just these colorful little icons on the map, and it just doesn't work in that world at all. And I feel like if they could have got away from the self-serious nature of the Tolkienverse a bit and had been cut more freedom, I think in general the game would have been a lot more fun to play. They should have just lent in on that. Joel, you reviewed it. What do you think?
I think you raised some good points in that. I mean, it follows that free flow combat system. I find it intoxicating, but I do wane of it after a while. And it is great throwing yourself in with enemies and stuff and having huge fights. It's great fun. But yeah, you're right. At times you want to try and progress with the game, progress through the main story, and it can be so irritatingly annoying trying to move around when you're constantly oh god, like captain after captain keeps turning up, and yeah, I know what you mean. I didn't think it was a massive disappointment. I mean, I think it's okay. I think it's probably come out a bit too soon after the first game, because the first game felt refreshing. Yeah,
about 3 years.
Yeah, I know, but I still think they should leave larger gaps. I still think 3 years can be a bit too close for a sequel. So yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't. The first was much more felt newer, refreshing, and more exciting. The second just kind of is a bit more, but yeah, they blended in elements of other games that just didn't really feel befitting of what the strength of this game originally was. And yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it's the biggest disappointment. I would say. Okay.
Well, I won't read it. Put it in red yet, but or orange. We'll just maybe come back to it. Destiny 2. Now, the reason that I've got this on my list, I reviewed it. I really liked it at the time of review. But the biggest reason is, it's on my disappointment is, I have almost no desire to play any more Destiny 2. Other than when the DLC drops, like we got with Trial of Osiris. I went back and played it for a couple of days and beat all of that. Other than that, the loop of Destiny 1 that coming back again and again and again to sink hundreds of hours, if not thousands of hours into Destiny 1, it just isn't there anymore for me. I feel like the changes they've made to make it easier to get your light levels, easier to get exotics, easier to get all the shit you want, in a weird way, has actually broken that thing about Destiny that made you want to come back to play more. It's strange because it feels like because they've given everybody what they wanted too easily, there's no reason to return, and that's why it's such a disappointment. I wanted an everyday game that if I wanted to drop in for an hour, I could, and it's just not there anymore. That loop is not there. And that's beside the weird microtransaction shit that they're doing and the obfuscating stuff from the player base, which is turning every day more and more bitter and more against Bungie, and they need to do some stuff fast to fix this problem. So, what do you guys feel about Destiny 2?
I'm not disappointed with it, but coming off the back of Destiny 1 that I wasn't massively into anyway. I mean, I put lots of hours into it, a hell of a lot of hours compared to a lot of games, just not compared to a lot of other Destiny players. Destiny 2 didn't get much less of my time, I don't think. Saying that, I haven't gone back for the DLC, although I do own it. So yeah,
that should say a lot, really, shouldn't it? Really, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, the other side of that, though, decent single-player campaign that I
but
enjoyed.
It kind of, I agree, but it had more characters, right? It had less lore. It's like we're going to make the characters nice and accessible, and yet we're going to make the world less interesting to be in. And weirdly, I miss Grimoire cards. I thought I was looking forward to them integrating that kind of lore into the universe, and they just didn't do that. They just took it all out. What do you think, Joel?
I really just, this one's kind of got me at a dead end in the sense that I first got it, I put it in, I enjoyed it. We had some good fun playing together. We had some good times on Destiny 2, but I just feel like I've moved on, and I just don't. It's not a bad game, but it's got really good gunplay still. I quite enjoyed the weapons, the environments. It's fantastic to look at, visually stunning in places. But yeah, I just don't know why. I've just got no appetite to go back, and I don't. I spent quite a bit of time grinding in Destiny, and I've did a little bit of grinding in Destiny 2. But yeah, and the thing is, I'm not even really sure why. I'm trying to think deep down. What is it? I think it might just be because there are other games I want to play more. There's just been so many other games this year. Is it the biggest disappointment? No, I think it. You know, I find it hard to complain much about the. Yeah, sure, there are some. I think there's problems with the later game economy that I didn't really get to, or I was just beginning to touch on. But yeah, it was all right up until then. I just don't know why I don't want to go back and play it.
Do you know what's really weird about it as well? It's so nondescript. I just had to Google it to check the release date, and the game only came out in September. Yeah. And the fact that I already feel completely nonplussed about playing it only like 4 months later, considering Destiny had me hooked for like 2 years, that's just shocking. Like there is something very disappointing about Destiny 2. It's almost intangible. It's hard to put exactly point at one thing and say that's the problem. I think it's the entire package. It's like every rough edge has been sanded down so much that it's become a very homogenous experience. At the core of it, it's still that great shooter. That combat is still fab, but so little has evolved or changed. The enemies are the same. The level design is almost the same. The strikes are very similar. The raid wasn't that inspiring. It's just incredibly iterative, and it just feels a bit of a letdown. We were all hoping for so much from Destiny 2, and at first it looked like it had delivered, but what really proved it didn't were those late game moments, that stuff in the end game where those loops and those hooks are just not there. And that really bummed me out about Destiny 2.
Well, not yet.
Yeah, well, if they, it might be too late if they get them in, eventually, but it might well be too late. They might have lost a lot of their players. I'm not going to put either way on that one, but we'll revisit. Need for Speed Payback. Now, the reason this is a big disappointment for me, and I don't think either of you guys played it, but it wasn't the Fast and the Furious game I hoped it would be based on its E3 showing. Instead,
those trailers look well good, and it just didn't do it.
No, it's instead of Fast and the Furious, it's just douchebags and the Furious, and I'm the Furious one. And it was just dull. Like, it's fine. The driving is fine. The characters are annoying. Everything you're doing feels like it lacks any kind of consequence or reason. There's loot box bullshit in there, microtransaction bullshit, because how could there not be in 2017? Just really fucking disappointing. That's the word, which is why it's on this category. I want to talk about this one, though, Rich. Because EA has got a real strong showing in this biggest disappointment category this year, I have to say. Star Wars Battlefront 2. I really you guys have seen my review, right? I liked so much about it, but then everything about that progression system and about those loot boxes and how they were tied into microtransactions at the time was a fucking nightmare. And I think, to me, the biggest disappointment is not so much the game, but how EA are squandering the license. And I think that Battlefront 2 gets I think that's where so much of the hate comes from. That's where Battlefront 2 gets like targeted, because that's all EA has to show for the Star Wars license, which they could be doing so much more with. And it's just been mismanaged and mishandled since moment one, this game, hasn't it?
Well, I think you're in the right ballpark with this, but Battlefront 2 for me is not the target. I think it's the cancelled single-player Star Wars game.
13.
No, not 1313. The one from Visceral with Amy Hennig.
Yeah, Visceral got canned this year, and their single-player Star Wars game went along with it. Now that is easily Second to Mass Effect, the biggest disappointment of the year for me. It's not on the list, but it's way more disappointing than Battlefront 2, which I actually enjoyed and am still enjoying. Still
It looks
logging
great.
into my daily crates. It looks great. It's accessible in all of its game modes. You can just jump on and play as you want. I think if you grew up playing with plastic Kenner toys in the 80s, this is just the perfect play set for, you know, grown up kids like me who just want to be in Star Wars. It's so much fun. And the loot box stuff really doesn't bother me because I've been able to unlock everything that I wanted to without having to pay for anything. I don't see it as a problem.
Joel, any thoughts?
So what, you know, on reflection, what did I not like about Battlefront 2? And I think the campaign, the single player campaign, I actually overall, you know, in hindsight, just felt a bit let down by it. It just wasn't. I think it could have been so much more. I think it kind of aligns with that hankering for just a good single player Star Wars experience. I think I was really looking forward to playing as the Empire. I kind of have an affinity with the Empire from Star Wars. I love the TIE Fighter title. I love playing an entire game from the other side of the fence, basically, and that was brilliant. I was deeply disappointed, I guess, when seemingly you know, after seeing your second Death Star blow up, because the lead character was also present during the destruction of the first Death Star, so that's twice she's seen I don't know how many people killed by the rebels. And then to kind of switch sides so early on in the campaign, yeah, the campaign itself is also suffers from that. You know, it's a multiplayer game, it's a multiplayer engine, it's multiplayer environments. So trying to structure a single player game through that system just really it grates on you by the end of it. It doesn't feel unique or special. It's you the whole time you're playing it, like, oh yeah, this is just kind of a practice or a tutorial for some multiplayer component. So, and the way that they kind of segue to try and shoehorn a chance to play as most of the heroes into the campaign, which I didn't really think I would. I wanted something that focused on Inferno Squad, went through, perhaps achieved the same end goal where they do switch sides for whatever reason, but just delivered better. So that was the letdown for me.
Did you expect more from it though, Joel?
I guess I did, because I actually like I actually bought they actually released a book before. But
oh my god! Even I don't know that.
I bought the book to sort of try and read and learn more about the character Inferno Squad and stuff. What they'd gone to with the marketing before. Remember, they got John Boyega up and involved, didn't they, through Twitter, and they said, yeah, come down today, we'll show you what we're doing and stuff. And so he was relatively positive, because I you know, they'd listened from the first game. People wanted a single player campaign, so they said they'd put something together. So I think it was, yeah, I think I just got sucked up in the hype about it, I guess, and felt a bit disappointed by what I got at the end.
I never felt this was going to be a proper single player campaign. It was just something to add to the value of the package.
I think the biggest problem is
the thing, and we're never going to get that now.
I think the biggest problem is Disney have no appetite for allowing EA to play with their license in interesting ways. You know, they don't. You wonder why, you know, Visceral got canned and that game got canned and stuff. Well, I imagine one of the aspects was Disney, because Disney, you know, they don't necessarily want a game about you playing as morally ambiguous or even villains, really, do they? They want you to be the hero. They want you to be the good guys, because they need to market this shit to children. So yeah, the games and the content we want as adults is probably not what Disney wants to produce, because that's not their target.
Rogue One was a lot more ambiguous than any other Star Wars film, morally.
Yeah, no, you're right, but that's not the core stuff, is it? You know, they might let a little bit of experimentation happen in the fringes with the films to appeal to the audience, but they're not going to let the video games, which everybody knows video games are for kids, Rich. Come on. They're not going to let the video games be too challenging, are they?
You know, all right. So when I play Battlefront 2, I think at certain points in that game, it's an absolute monument to the fact it isn't the games I want it to be. Like, for example, the space battles. So freaking, why don't you just make an entire game that is, you know, like that in VR as well? It's so visually stunning. It would be an incredible experience.
Yeah,
so
there you go. Yeah, Joel, keep narrowing your potential sales base right there. Go on.
I know. Yeah,
keep doing it. Keep doing it.
I guess that's one thing. Like, I see these moments of these sparks of genius in certain elements of the game, and it's just like I want more of those little bits. So it kind of what it serves up is kind of like a shopping window of bits of the Star Wars games that I would like. But instead, I've got this Star Wars game that has tiny snippets of bits, you know, what I really want, but doesn't really, you know, hasn't really delivered on what I wanted. So,
Richard, are you really defending that progression mechanic? Because fuck me, using loot boxes to progress in that game is the worst.
When you say defend it, I'm not going to champion it. I don't think it's the best progression system ever, but for the amount of hate that it's got, I think it's overblown. It's fine. It's too
I don't
complicated.
think it's fine. I think it's way too complicated. It's not explained properly. It's pretty garbage, mate. It's not fine.
It isn't a very good progression system. So no, I'm not going to defend it.
But I understand you're not defending
it. The game itself is really enjoyable, and I can't say I was disappointed with it because I've put in a lot of hours. And I'm still playing it. It's good.
Would it make you feel better if I changed this to biggest disappointment: Star Wars Battlefront 2 / EA fucking the license?
Yes.
Because you can't argue with that. But you could maybe argue that Battlefront 2 isn't a disappointment because if you had realistic expectations, which is what you're arguing, then it pretty much matched those, if not passed them. You know. Okay. I definitely think this in some form should be on this top 3, yeah. Friday the 13th, the game. Biggest disappointment for me, we'll circle back to Mass Effect because it's so obvious, but we'll get to that at the end. Biggest disappointment for me was that it's such a cool idea for an asymmetrical multiplayer game that, you know, the campers versus Jason in various situations and settings inspired by the various movies. What a cool idea. How awesome is that? However, in execution, it was garbage. It suffered from incredible amounts of technical problems, getting games, staying in games, host advantage, laggy, glitchy, broken, buggy mess that the developers aren't properly supporting post-release and still has problems. And then on top of that, it has one of the most toxic player bases I've ever experienced in a multiplayer game, and I'm including Overwatch in that list. So, yeah, just super, super, super disappointing because it's such a cool idea. You know, and Joel, you've had some experience with that developer because they went on to make your favorite game of the year, Dead Alliance.
Fucking Dead Alliance. That's not a game. That's a fucking insult. That's literally Dead Alliance. I just can't believe that people are like happy to stick their name on that shit and ship it out. I would literally fucking kill myself. Fuck that. That's just so disturbingly shit. Like, to me, you know, perhaps there is at the core of it a decent idea and a decent game and some, you know, mechanics they can build on. But it's just to, you know, literally to get to that point and say, yeah, boys, we're nearly done. Let's ship it. It's just fucking insulting. Like,
and I hope if you're listening, developers out there, that you understand that Joel is the calm voice of reason. He's not prone to hyperbole like I am. So when he suggests that you kill yourself, you should take that seriously.
Yeah. So I can only imagine what the Friday the 13th is like.
It's not good. I don't know if it's biggest disappointment because, you know, realistically, what expectations were there ahead of time? But I wanted to mention it in the only category. I tried to avoid lots of negative categories for Game of the Year because I don't think that's what this should be. We should be celebrating the good stuff rather than treading on the bad stuff. But yeah, so we've only got this one, so I wanted it in there. Finally, for me though, and this hurt. It's Tacoma. You guys know how much I loved Gone Home. Right, we've talked about it before. I think we all loved Gone Home. It was my game of the year, the year that came out. So I was so excited about the Fulbright company's follow-up to Gone Home. It was long delayed. It got like basically rebuilt from the ground up more than once. They had loads of problems getting it working, and it just wasn't the game I hoped it would be. And maybe I had some unfair expectations, but I'm pretty sure this is the game they wanted to make. However, it's just quite boring. It's quite dull and grey. I didn't connect with any of the characters in the way I did in Gone Home. I feel like there was some ambition to how they were going to present the story with that AR rewinding through scenes that you're in. It's kind of a cool idea, but what it meant was, because it's so non-linear, I didn't connect with that narrative and those characters in the way I did in Gone Home, which is fed to you in a very linear fashion, isn't it, as you progress through the house. This has the same strong sense of place that Gone Home had. It just isn't a place I really wanted to spend any time in, which is this horrible corporatized future in which you're basically owned by companies. There's like emails in this game referring to Amazon University credits, you know, so that, you know, you've been a loyal customer for Amazon, and then you can use those credits to go to college. And it's just a depressing world. It's a potentially realistic world that we might be all heading towards. However, it's not a world I necessarily wanted to spend those few hours in. Yeah, it's got some cool stuff with AI in there. And there's a pretty decent twist at the end and revelation, much like there is at the end of Gone Home. But in general, their experiment with the non-linear storytelling just didn't click with me. And I respect them for trying something new and different, but I am disappointed that I'm not shouting about Tacoma as a Game of the Year contender like I was for Gone Home in 2014, 2015, something like that. Maybe even 2013. But yeah, bummer. You guys not played it, no?
No, I nearly bought it last week, but yeah, just like I said in the style category, it just didn't look very appealing.
And
So
that's fair, because it doesn't. I don't think that's going to be in the top three, right? We've got two top twos here in the top three already. We've got Star Wars Battlefront 2 and Mass Effect Andromeda. I almost don't want to talk about it anymore because it makes me cry.
We need to be specific, I think, about what the issues.
What? Andromeda?
No. Yeah.
The issues? Well, they're manifold, are they not, Joel? So we've got technical problems, we've got narrative problems, we've got poor writing, we've got poor setting, bad ideas, just characters you don't care about, squad mates you don't care about. Everything felt too safe and too much like the original, but at the same time, not as good. You got any more issues you wanted to bring up? I mean,
well, there one part of the game that summed up just how freaking I don't know, just how ill-conceived certain parts of that game really were, is that bloody planet you go to. When you first land on it, you land on the kind of the city. And then if you want to go down to the planet surface, you have to take that bloody lift. So the first time you arrive, you want to go to the city. It's only a small, little area and stuff. But then virtually every other time you go to that planet, you want to go down to the planet surface, but you have to go via the city first. So you have to sit through 2 freaking loading screens. And then the other part, I think early on they patched it originally, but the way that when the ship moved between planets, it wanted to show you that cool animation, and it was very pretty and stuff. But after a while, it's just like, look, guys, come on, I just want to get to the planet. Everything in that game just seemed so purposefully slow, and like it was just trying to stall and delay you. And well, not every aspect, but those were some problems with the game. I just couldn't get on board with the overall real baseline story of it.
The game was so bad, Joel. It killed Mass Effect.
I don't think it'll have killed Mass Effect.
Well, it's dead right now.
EA will undoubtedly.
They closed the studio, Joel. They closed it.
Yeah, they closed the studio, but EA still own all the rights. So I have no doubts that at some point they will try to relaunch it, reboot it per se.
So sad. So sad.
I mean, J.J. Abrams in, they'll reboot it.
I will never forget some technical problems I had. Like, I remember going to a room to have a conversation with a guy, and the guy didn't load in. So I had a one-sided conversation like, hey, oh, okay. Yes, good point. That was a very important story moment you just told me about. Bye. And it's just like, what the that happened multiple times in my playthrough. I mean, it's just like, for Christ's sake. And then you read about what the original design docs for that game were and stuff, like the hundreds of procedurally created worlds that ended up being 7 worlds. We only got 2 new alien races, you know, in an entirely different fucking galaxy. What the fuck, man? I mean, it's just like they cut that down and cut it down and cut it down, and even then it's barely serviceable as a Mass Effect game. There are some improvements. Combat is the best it's ever been. and mobility is the best it's ever been in that game. But the bits you play Mass Effect for, the dialogue, the characters, the story, the world, were all fucking broken shit. And it's just such a bummer. Such a bummer. My all-time favorite game, Mass Effect 2, and they do that to the franchise. So that's why that's number one, without a fucking doubt. I think Star Wars Battlefront 2 / EA fucks the Star Wars license is on the list. I would say Destiny 2. Yeah, number 3. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I think that's a fair list because they're all things that we had high hopes for, and the disappointment is therefore much bigger.
So I'm just putting it in. I'm making it final. Joel, anything you wanted to add, change, don't agree with, let us know.
If EA are listening, please fucking render your cutscenes at 4K as well as fucking 1080p, because that was so bad in Battlefront 2.
And also, please.
Oh yes,
yourself.
Good point actually about Battlefront 2. That's really weird when the game visuals look better than the cutscenes on your TV. That was a strange thing.
Or just use in-engine cutscenes, because honestly, that's so fun.
Yeah, it's not just them. I thought the same thing on Assassin's Creed Origins. The intro cutscene just looks ropey, and then you get into the actual game, and like, right, why not just use this, guys?
That static image with a loading screen, I'm happy. Just don't show me that awful tosh. Yeah, that's one thing Middle-earth: Shadow of War actually did quite well, is they also packaged in 4K cutscenes. So yeah.
Right, so biggest disappointment, Mass Effect Andromeda, followed by Star Wars Battlefront 2. EA fucks the license of Star Wars entirely in the butthole, and then Destiny 2. So yeah, that's the end of episode 1 of Game of the Year 2017 discussions. We will be back soon this afternoon. If you're listening / watching live. So for now, from me, Ben, and from Richard. Say something, Richard. I don't know. Say anything, Richard.
I was thinking about saying goodbye, but then I'm coming back in a bit.
How about see you later?
See you later.
See you later. In a while, crocodile, from Joel.
My jaw's already hurting.
Good. Time to find that second wind, bro, because we haven't even got into the good shit yet. So that was just the opening salvo, and we ran about 3 hours on that. So we'll be back very soon for much, much more, which will be best multiplayer, best visuals, best music, and best games of 2017. So until then, see you soon.
Bye.